The following live broadcast is rated ESV PG. We talk about some deep topics, but we're here to have fun with life as well. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ear Shoulder Voice. Tonight's topic, we're going to be covering trans people, what it's like to be transgender, or just having trans emotions and wanting to change or feeling you're in the wrong body type, whatever it happens to be for you. But we're not just going to stop with talking about what it's like to be trans. We're going to talk about what it's like to try to understand people who are trans, because a lot of people get mixed emotions and mixed feelings about that. So that's all coming up on this show. You guys ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Hey, yeah,
Woo!
entertainment, excitement. Good evening, everybody. Trans, what a term that is. Trans used to be a simple term, 20, 30 years ago. It just meant pretty much a guy who wanted to be a girl, girl wanted to be a guy. That was it. That's what we were stuck with. That's what we understood. That's what we knew. And we were so wrong. As the years have gone by, so many people have come out and wanted to be something else, but they just can't necessarily define it. They don't understand it. And one of the things that's happened in society today is terms have changed, words have changed. So many different explanations of what somebody could be have come out that we just don't always get it. Does it mean they're wrong? No, not in any way. They're expressing emotions, feelings they've never been through before, because we live in a world now where everything is open, where everybody can be anything they want to be. And that is a great progressive world, but there's still some of us that just don't understand it. We don't get what it means, and sometimes when we don't understand it, we get angry at it. We turn to hurt. We do things just to upset another person. We tell them they're wrong. And that's got to be addressed as well. We've got some people on the show that are going to share that with us. Hello, I'm Keith Liffin for Ear Shoulder Voice. Again, today's topic is life transformed. What does it mean when dealing with gender identity? One of the most important things you can deal with if you're going through it, because that is your life and that is who you are. And we can't have a show unless we talk to actual people, and we've got a great panel here tonight, so let's get with them. As, of course, a reminder before I bring on our panel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ear Shoulder Voice on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Meta. You know, that wonderful stuff. Reach out to us. You can also engage through the chat. We'll respond live to everything you say. Or you can join into the show. Just live call in if you want to. All you got to do is go to earshouldervoice.com. All right, other than that, let's bring in our panel. Our first guest tonight, please, welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen her. Lenny, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am absolutely fantastic. So, it's before we actually get into our topic, of course, it's been a while for you. How has life been going for you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good. So everything is smoothing out. I know you couldn't make some shows because of issues. We're not going to really talk about the issues, but I'm glad things are smoothing out. I'm glad things are getting better. I know you. One of the people I was trying to get on this show is related to you, and unfortunately, they're not going to be able to make it tonight. And how do you feel about the situation with the word trans coming out to a lot of people?
Well, for me, the whole labeling anybody anything is kind of, it changes. You know, it used to just be if somebody was gay, you called them gay. Now it's, now we have this LBG, whatever, this whole label for everyone. I don't know why we have to label them at all.
Well, we're going to definitely be talking about that as well, because that's one of my actual views is why do we have to label things? But I also think it's hard to umbrella everything as well when someone's seeking individual identity.
Right.
All right, we're going to bring in our next panelist right now. Please welcome back Elena. Elena, how's it going?
Hi, Elena.
Good. How are you guys?
I am very good. You were on our Sunday show about 2 weeks ago where we actually delved a little bit into this right now, which actually brought the topic out. Obviously, your opinions haven't changed. How strongly do you really feel about what Lenny was saying? We'll start there for you with the labels.
I understand labeling people can make them feel like they're getting put into a box, and no one wants to feel like that. However, I do think that for a lot of other people, it's very important that they feel represented and heard. So it's kind of like
empowered.
Yeah,
by a group,
exactly.
rather than
I
being
think
an
that has a lot to
individual.
do with I think that's like when the LGBTQ community took back the word queer. It's like, no, this is our word now. This is no longer a like slang term that you can use to bully or make fun of me. It's like, no, now this is ours. We're rebranding it and making it more empowered and stuff like that.
That makes total sense. That does make sense. I'm in the same boat as both of you, really. Like I said, I think the labels, but Lena, I agree. Sometimes boxing them in isn't a good idea. Like I said, you're umbrellaing everybody under one
Hmm.
group, which is great for other people who don't belong to that group, but
Right.
it's difficult for the people that do. All right, let's bring in our next panelist, Naughty Nikki. Naughty,
Hi,
really naughty
Lenny.
Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
I just had to be a little sassy today.
That's fair. That's fair. So, you've heard us talking right now. What is your opinion on the whole trans movement? Things have definitely advanced. I don't know who in your is anybody in your life really affected with this, or
A few years ago, I think like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when me and my husband were separated, I moved in with a friend from cosmetology school, and um, he was trans. You know, it's I, it's always so confusing to me because I'm not part of that community. I'm very accepting. Everybody for themselves, but I never knew how to refer to him, her. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I had a roommate who was, and it it's a different world, and to live with somebody and see from their perspective the acceptance or lack of thereof. It put me into a different um they're a little feisty, but it put me into a different it opened my eyes to help me see and understand why they sort of want that placement in a box. It's like
right?
accepting them and recognizing them, and
We're going to have
um
somebody coming up who's going to answer a lot of these questions coming up. But first, we're
yeah.
going to bring in our final regular panelist. Please welcome back Bill the King. Bill,
Hi,
how
Bill.
you doing?
I'm doing fine, but I just want to say I was online before Lenny and Nikki, and he still pulled me in fourth. But yeah, it's okay.
Ladies first.
I was online
But
Ladies
first and
first.
I still got
Well,
but
pulled.
your
almost
introduction,
all ladies first. You want to?
but
Hey,
your introduction, that last guy that shows up, that last picture, man, that guy's a good-looking guy. You ought to have him on all the time. So
hmm?
that's all I know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a great intro there, Bill. Way to have your ego and everything. Bill,
Very Bill spirited.
many people have probably seen you on this show. Would see you as kind of the one, the womanizer. He doesn't know anything about trans people. That's far from the truth. If they actually listen to some of the stuff you say, you have a lot of friends, even your best friend, that is gay. Or how surrounded are you in this atmosphere right now?
Well, you gotta. I mean, you're trying to get the other people on here. We can go into it later, but I mean,
I'll cut you off when I'm
it
tired of you.
started. It started earlier. It started early. I mean, the first time I actually, whenever I was working at the bar, the first time I actually got stabbed was now back at this point in time. Uh, they weren't called, people were called transgender or anything like that. They were
Hmm.
called, it was guys, it was called cross dressers.
Right.
You know, it,
Well,
it or
that's
drag
still.
queens or drag
Yeah, but
queens
there's a
because
difference between transgender
there
and a drag
there
queen.
is
Mhm.
there
But
is
but Bill is
has,
right. Way back, it was a like you
has
were saying,
everything
it
is
was a global label.
has everything has gone on. It has changed, but I mean, we're talking back in the mid '80s.
Hmm.
All right, an African American man wearing a red dress came into a hillbilly bar over in Warren, and Keith knows it. It used to be called Club Royal. It used to be called Dazzled. It used to be called Jumpin' Jacks.
Yeah.
And I tried to tell the man, I said, this isn't the spot for you. And then I said, and I'm sorry, I just called you a guy. I said, whatever you want to be. I said, it's all right. I said, but this isn't the spot for you. I said, this is a redneck bar. And I said, and someone's going to beat you up. And the person said to me, he says, well, I'm not worried about your patrons. I said, I'm not talking about the patrons. I said, the
Right.
bouncers here want to beat the hell out of you.
Right.
I said, that's just the way it is. And I used to go pick up, I don't remember if it was Wednesday night or Thursday night now, but I used to pick up 2 drag queens from the Rainbow Room all the time, every week.
Right.
So,
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're all talking about. We all have slightly different opinions on this, and some of us match, some of us disagree, some of us are just confused on it. But what better person to answer it? Please welcome our special guest tonight, Jane. How you doing?
Hi, I'm
Jane.
doing okay. Hello,
All right.
hi.
Yes, there you are. How you doing, Jane? So, Jane,
I feel a little outnumbered. I'm not gonna lie.
you're what?
No.
I feel a little outnumbered. I'm starting to.
You
think
weren't
that-
originally. Unfortunately, we had 2 other people that were going to be on here that couldn't make it. That would have been on your side, but you're not actually outnumbered.
No.
Um,
And I'm on your side.
Yeah, and Elena is definitely, Elena is. It's like, you actually requested her for this show. Let's start.
I did, and I'm glad that Elena is here. Hello.
Let me
Hi.
start with that, Jane.
Yes.
Why was it important to request Elena for this show?
Well, honestly, I haven't watched a whole lot of the show until I met you. But the past couple of shows I have been able to watch, I've always just really enjoyed the way how Elena kind of spoke up and the kind of arguments that she was able to defend for, as well as the king here. I'm very interested to see what kind of conversations him and I are going to have. But it's all in good fun. I know that we're all friends here. We're all good here. I'm very excited to be here too.
The king can definitely elicit some interesting conversations for sure on this show.
Oh yeah.
So you've heard, Jane, you've heard some of us talking. What are your opinions basically? I'm going to give you a chance to react to what most of us said on there. So what do you have to say about anybody on there? Is there anything that irked you, got you, or you thought was right that you want to elaborate on?
Well, a couple of things. I think the one thing that really stuck out to me the most is the idea and the thought that everyone has on identity and what it really means to identify as something, especially with me being a trans woman, and identifying as that, standing by that, and defending that in certain situations, making it known. I used to work at the Gender and Sexuality Center over at Oakland University. That was from 2018 up until, unfortunately, the COVID-19 crisis began in March of 2020. And something that we would describe all the time or discuss to people who would come in, as well as the Pride Month events that we would have throughout the year, really the importance of what it is to identify. Now, for me, the importance of identity was never the idea of putting a label to myself, but something that really helped define how I felt. Now, Keith knows me very well. I don't wear makeup very often. I'm always kind of wearing the same pair of blue jeans. Always have on like t-shirts, stuff that's usually translated as masculine clothing or appearance. But I still define myself as trans because those type of things that create that label really matter. And I think that's something very important about transness itself, is that nothing really needs to have that form of label, but it's just something that we can identify with, something that we can grasp with, and something that we can define.
Okay, that does make sense as far as the labels. How do you feel about that, Lenny? Because you were the first one to bring up the idea of the labeling.
Well, for me, okay, so you're a lot younger than the people that I have been exposed to in that world. My best friends are gay men, and I'm surrounded by loads of homosexuals, mainly men, a handful of women, but I have a few my best friends are transgender, and this is back probably 15, 20 years that I would go out with them all the time, and the one wasn't complete yet. You know, she was a he, became a she, but did not have the surgery down below, but had the breast implants and had the hormone stuff going on that they was changing over. And she would date, this is a great story because I was so intrigued to listen to her. Sorry. When we were at dinner, she would walk in the room, and I'm telling you, every guy would turn their head. She was beautiful. Sorry, it's my son. Anyway, so sitting there listening to her tell her story about dating. Okay, the dating part was the hardest part for me because she was dating straight men that didn't know that she was even that to that point. And when they would be intimate and stuff like that, except for she would never let them explore any further, so they never knew. So how dangerous, and I said this, how dangerous would that be if that straight man finds out and wanted no part of that? You know, that's a very dangerous situation for somebody in their shoes. But then at the same time, how sad it is, because that's what she's attracted to, and that's where eventually she will wind up, you know, meeting a person that accepts all of it. But back then it wasn't nearly as accepted as it is today, because of all of the exposure of it all. So.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to start with, of course, everyone believes how they want to believe. I fully believe and think that everyone should believe that just because someone has not gone through their surgical transition does not make them less of a trans person. I don't think that the transitional period is even that important. As soon as that person wants to share with everyone how they identify, I think that's should be point blank period.
How would you feel if you started dating someone and became intimate with them and didn't know, and they didn't tell that person their life story? You know, I mean, the fairness of the other person, you know, that might not want anything to do with that. That's in my opinion, you know, that it shouldn't happen until you can actually trust that person enough to tell them what you're going through, and then let that person decide whether or not they want to go further. That was my only issue with that. But
if I could add just for a
course.
moment, I do agree with the fact of it's not necessarily needed for a trans person to go through any sort of actual transitioning.
Hang on one second, because I don't know if you guys are having trouble hearing.
Yeah, it's a little hard to
can't
hear,
hear
Jane.
I can't
He's
hear
kind of
it.
fuzzy.
I really want to know what you're saying.
She's kind of fuzzy. See, I do that all the
You
time.
can't hear me? Hold on.
It's very,
Jane, I think your
now?
mic got turned off. I think we're just
very
hearing you
muffled.
from your computer.
That might actually be it on there.
Uh-oh.
That was my theory.
Because I
That's a good
really want to
theory.
hear what you have
Hear
to
me
say.
now.
We can hear you. It's just super muffled.
It's very muffled.
Yeah.
What in the world happened to my dang gone thing?
Sorry.
How about now? Is this better?
It's still kind of the same. It's kind of muffled. Go just try to be a little closer if you can for right now.
Okay.
We actually have a couple audio issues. Sorry about
And
that.
talk
Extremely
slow so
close
we
to
can get
this.
every word.
And then I'm going to take 5 minutes and figure out what's going on with the technical difficulties I'm having. Okay? But a couple of things. One, being a trans person, I can, and allow me to just say before I go on, because I'm a trans woman, I'm not going to act here as if though I can speak for every trans person in the world.
Right.
Right.
So I want to just establish that. But for me, I don't think it's very important in the idea of transitioning to have to forego those type of surgeries. For one, especially, for genitalia and everything, because it can be a very dangerous process. A lot of trans people are nervous about it. I'm nervous about it. I'm debating whether or not to even do it. But that doesn't make me any less of a woman. In the circumstance of this situation that you bring up, the idea of a cis man or a partner or whomever who isn't really aware of the idea that the person still has their previous genitalia non-conforming to, I think one thing that's important about that is just the subjective nature of that. For one, I don't date anyone if I know that if that's going to be a problem or an issue. And I also think it comes to the idea of comfortability and safety. Now, one thing that irritates me more than anything in the world, and all of my friends do it all the time, is when people speak for me and tell others that I'm trans. Usually people who know that I'm a trans person, well, first off, will follow me on social media because I make that very clear. or I have taken the time to tell them. Just because I haven't told someone that's close to us doesn't mean I'm not going to eventually, but it's kind of my business. It's my gender.
Right.
It's me, right? And my own situation. But I'm also understanding of the idea of if I am going to meet someone, let's say a cis man, who is unaware of the fact that I am trans, that's something that I'm going to bring up. That's something that's going to be important. And with that, we'll have to come with questions. If I were ever to go and see a man, and I have before, it's never going to be at the beginning of being like, hey, that's just not how I handle those situations. But when I make it very clear that I am trans, or I tell that person that I'm trans, it is also up to them to ask those questions. It is important to them to ask those questions, and it's not always my. I'm sorry.
I want to interrupt you actually a little bit on that one because I have a question about a few
I have
things you
some
mentioned.
technical difficulties.
You are. Okay, so I can't interrupt her yet. There. And we're going to get into that him-her thing because that is an issue that we talked about a lot, Elena. And I definitely want him to address it as well. I can't really interrupt now because she's not there. But
I'm here. You can speak. I'm handling.
Camera issues.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair on that. Okay, so I had a little bit of an issue, like you said. It's their job to ask about it, but is there anything to be said for the comfort level of those other people? Like, wouldn't you feel that that's what they're most focused on? And don't you think that that's kind of how they feel when it comes to asking about it? Like, God, ever since I told you I was trans, you have all these questions. And I don't want anybody to feel that that's my focus because as a person, I like you. I don't want you to feel that I need all this information right now.
Right.
So is it right to offload all of that onto the person you're talking to? She's muted. Yeah, she's muted.
So here's.
I think she's still trying to
There you
figure out her
go.
microphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I will circle around, let the table go around with their thoughts. I'll come back with mine.
Okay, that's fair.
I
You work on your technical issues for a minute. All right.
So I think with the experience that I have had with the people that I know, it's been, our world has changed so much to the benefit of Jane.
Yes.
Back then, I don't think that this man that turned and had the sex change and did the transformation, went through all of that. Back then, it was dangerous. It was really hard to say, hey, I'm going through this, I don't even know
Yes.
how I mean, I remember talking to this person at length about it, and the thing that stuck into my head was the fact that what she would do was when it came time when they wanted to explore further in that zone, she would end the relationship and then move on. And I'm like, how sad is that too? Until she could get everything complete. And hopefully, like I said, it's changed to where it's more accepted, to where you can actually have a better relationship at the start with somebody. They understand about it a little bit more than they did before.
I agree. And for anybody in the chat, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let us know. We'd like to engage it. If you have any questions for Jane or anybody on the panel, just feel free to ask them. There's no wrong questions because we're here to find out information on what it's like, and we can all learn from this.
I do
just
really
want-
I
like.
think I fixed.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lena.
Okay.
Go,
well,
you go ahead, Nikki.
No, it's
Nikki, go ahead real quick.
I just wanted to touch base on what Lenny said because perfect example of that. Look at Bruce Jenner, who
Right.
back in the decade that you're talking about, and had to wait until now till it's become more accepted. And how sad is that for people who maybe never got a chance?
106
Because of
years
fear.
old and he transitioned.
Do what?
He was 106 years old when he transitioned or something like that. How old is he?
Oh, he
Caleb?
ain't no 106, like 60 something. But I mean, but look though, he was stripped of his Olympic medals. I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine like that fear, and we don't know what it's like necessarily to live in a fear of not being accepted and not being able to be yourself because what they may do to you. You know, we're not all
So,
Olympic
Jane-
gold
There is
medalists.
fear. Before I want to get to Jane was going to respond to all these. I
Yeah.
want to let him do that first,
Yes.
but I also want to mention the Atlanta Thrashers comment. Says there's two kinds of people: those who will share pizza with me and extras. And that's kind of a funny comment. I get what you're saying there, but in a way that it's a comment like I think that you're kind of what you're saying is I don't see color or I don't see gender or it doesn't matter, and that can sometimes pull us away as well, because the whole reason trans exists and gay exists and those terms exist is because people want to be identified properly and not blanketed with everybody else. However, as the comment is funny, I agree with you. Share a pizza or don't. Those are the two kinds of people that most people of us want to see. So go ahead, Jane.
Well, first off, is everything good now?
I was about the same, but that's okay. Go
Are you
ahead.
kidding me?
No, it's okay. Just
It's
talk
okay.
talk a little
Yeah.
slower so we get every word.
Take the cover off the microphone.
How about now?
That's a little better.
That's
actually.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. Okay, here, let's get real for a minute. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
good. Go ahead.
Is this
We're
loud and
good. Go ahead.
for everyone? Good. Okay. So bring me back up to speed really quick. I'm so sorry because this whole situation.
Okay. Where was it?
Yeah.
You told us to keep going around and you were going to prepare your responses.
Yeah.
We were just
Yes,
talking
and then
about
Okay.
how
Now it just sounds really
societies.
bad.
That's okay.
We were just talking about how society's changed in a positive way, and a lot of people are a lot more accepting now, and how sad it was that Caitlyn Jenner had to wait so long for her transition until
I'm-
she felt more comfortable.
I'm really glad that Caitlyn Jenner got brought up here, because for where it came from me, because I would imagine I'm the youngest person here in this circle,
I think you are, but not by much.
not by much. So then, if those who can relate with me with this, awesome. But I grew up around a time where this new look on gender and sexuality, and the idea of a growing spectrum, and the idea of there being this whole LGBT community that we have now, I started to figure out my own identity while that became more accepted. I was only 14, 15 years old when the first legal gay marriage happened, when that was allowed. That was a huge moment. Something I don't think I'm ever going to be able to forget. But when Caitlyn Jenner had come out as trans, that was something that was very impactful for me, because that was something I never really saw on television. And you have to think, like, a lot of times when it was shown, it was never really meant in a positive connotation. First off, when you think about it through media, trans is always ever seen as something depressing, a killer, sociopath, or usually ends up killing themselves at the end.
Especially in movies.
You can think, right, in movies and television, the idea of a trans person being seen as positive or having a positive life or lifestyle was never really heard of, at least at the time. And being able to grow up around that time, especially at a very impressionable age, around 15, 16 years old, was very captivating. And I think that's what also causes sometimes a kind of divide, this idea of there being a label for everything, as well as the idea that was brought up, the idea of two people sharing the slices and the extras, or however it was put in the chat here below. I think that there's a divide because now there's so much more media that has been brought up with a younger age, a younger generation, meant for a younger demographic, trying to appeal to everyone. But it's something that really grew out of what it came from the generation that I'm a part of right now. And I think that causes a lot of questions. And I think that also poses we wouldn't be here today without that kind of, move.
Do you think it's going too far? Do you think the idea of constantly, and this is something we talked about briefly, Elena, that individualizing everybody to be different, like, gay, LBG, or LBGT, and LGBTQ, and LGBTQ, and I guess there's another one now that you had mentioned at another point.
LGBTQIA, if I remember correctly.
What's the
Yeah.
I?
Oh, honey, I can't remember this time of the night.
The Atlanta Thrasher says A. Do you know what the I or the A is, Thrasher?
I think the I is intersex, but I could be mistaken.
I believe it should be intersex, and
Asexual?
I want to
Okay,
say asexual.
Asexual
Yeah.
is what he said. Okay.
Beautiful.
Intersex and
Thank you,
asexual.
the Atlanta Thrasher from Twitch.tv.
glad to get that answer because we
And
were unsure.
and I think personally, I don't think it's gone to the idea of too far in the sake of what it stands for. I think what's made it go so far has been the ever-growing effects done by it through social media. And the fact that media finds a way to twist it, both in the ideas of journalism, both in the idea of social media like Twitter, Instagram. Um, it allows there to be a more exaggerative property to what it is.
What about when it comes to like law and government involvement? The reason I'm saying is something you quoted earlier. You talked about when gay marriage was a thing. Well, gay now covers gay, and now we're on to trying to get trans or other people and stuff like that their rights. Like we separated it now to where gay marriage doesn't include all these other people necessarily, or does it? And if it does, then you're only referring to it as gay marriage, and are we going to have to change that terminology?
So
Well, I think the only
I-
government involvement that's going on right now involving trans people is trans people trying to get their legal gender changed. That has nothing to do with marriage.
So, but what does
Well, no, but he
happen if you wanted to
specified
get
gay
married?
marriage, and now
So-
we've separated these groups. Go ahead, Lenny.
I want
Jane,
to point out
if you-
really quick. I think it's very ironic that I've been called he this entire time.
I've said he and she. I said them both.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, I'm trying. I told you it's
So-
still a little bit for me to get
Yeah.
used to,
I'm
but
just, I'm just giving you shit, Keith. I'm giving
Oh no,
you
we're
shit.
gonna definitely get there. I was like,
I have a question though. So Jane, are you married?
Am I married? No.
Okay, no. Okay, so if you marry, will you have the same rights as any married couple? Like you know how they have gay marriage that they are considered gay marriage. So what?
Right.
What? I mean, I don't know. Will you have
Well, gay
the same
marriage has all the
tax-
same rights as heterosexual marriage.
I don't think in every state though. I think just
It
here.
does.
It does.
I don't
It
think
does.
that's true either.
I don't
It was in
think so.
2015 was to make it legal in every state in America.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
thought
what
there were
made it
states
so-
actually that repealed that, weren't there?
They attempted to repeal, but it is
Okay.
legal in all 50 states in the United States of America.
I mean,
It
that's
has the
good.
exact
And
same rights as everyone.
Okay.
Bingo. And I think something too that might also be a bit mixed is the idea of gay marriage is not the same kind of fight that trans people are doing today. For gay marriage, that was something to respect, identify, and understand the fact that there are two men or two women that can love each other the same way as a man and a woman.
And have the same financial perks that a marriage creates, because
Now,
there are
with
tax
transness-
benefits in that.
With transness, it's a
I'll
fight
get to the comment in a
over
minute. Go ahead.
it's a fight over that identity, right? Now, it's not in the type of way. See, I think that's the one thing that's made it so hard now because of social media. The idea of everything must be labeled, everything must be categorized, because that's not really what we're trying to do. At least that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to live my life and know that one day it is okay because every once in a while I do wear makeup. I own many different outfits that are seen as feminine. And I want to be able to live my life knowing that it's not going to turn heads, and know that I can come out as trans, and know that that's not going to be a problem. Or at that point where I won't have to care if a friend tells others that I'm trans. That's something that I still go through today, and it can be an issue.
The Atlanta Thrasher here says that brings up a point that I said about everyone wanting a public identity. Why not just let it be marriage? I don't have a problem with people publicizing their stuff, but if you're private, you should have that right too. And that's kind of what I was saying about it, is we're identifying as gay marriage, and is you think trans marriage is eventually going to become an issue. It's going to be something like that, and because we're not grouping everybody in the places we should, and we are grouping them in the places we shouldn't. You know, this is just, a lot of people see gay marriage as just gay people and don't think that trans have the same right. And obviously, trans people do have a right. Jane here, she has the same right. as anybody else out there does. What are you fighting for, Jane?
Well, for me, I'm just kind of fighting for the ability to be myself. Like earlier today is a great example. So most people know me as just Jay. Now, the reason for that is because my dad's name also starts with the letter J, and as you can see, I prefer to go by Jane. So for me, what made it easier for those around me was when I left high school, I just started going by Jay as like a nickname, but also just as my name, to make it an easier process for myself and for those around me. And I want to get to that point now where I don't have to do that. If that answers the question, that's what I'm really wanting
That's your
to do.
fight, is just to be a
myself.
regular member of society without caring, but that leads into other issues, as we were talking before, as far as you meeting people or people meeting you and what it could lead to. And this is where we have a disconnect with everybody a lot of times. Bill, you haven't said anything. It looks like you wanted to. Do you got anything to add to that?
I do. I've got some questions, and again, I don't want to be politically incorrect, and I don't want to upset anyone, but I do want to ask questions. So, Jane,
Yes.
so you consider yourself transgender, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you were, and I'm trying to word this correctly, and I don't know how. So you're a man, and you feel like you're a woman, correct?
She is a woman.
You were
I'm-
born a
I'm-
man.
I'm
You were
Prior,
working-
prior
born
to
I'm-
transformation. Yeah.
male,
Okay.
and you're
So what I'm
transforming
asking,
now.
because Jane, you got to understand, I'm 58 years old. So the
I'm
stuff
not
I saw
holding
when I was
anything.
young,
I haven't said anything to you yet.
stuff I was young was different. So the thing is so if and this is the stuff that I was telling Keith I don't understand. So if you're transgender, does that mean that you want to go through the operation and everything and have female organs and stuff?
Well, right now I'm going through the debate because I've done my research. In order for me to go through that surgery, it could cause a lot of defects. It's not a perfect science.
Right.
So at the moment, I'm not really comfortable doing that yet. But yes, my plan is to go through the whole process with estrogen and go through that full body transformation. Yes.
I think.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead, Bill.
another question. So
Yes.
before you had this going on, before you were thinking about this, even discussing it in your head, did you like men?
Well, I think the idea of being transgender does not necessarily mean that I would like men.
But it is
the important thing.
in his
the important thing to keep
defense
in
as you
mind-
answer. I want to add something. Is the reason he's bringing it up is that is the confusion with it a lot of times is that
Right.
you are gay and want to switch around, not because you have to like men or that's what pushed you to do it. But that's confusion people have with trans. Go ahead and answer. I just wanted to
Right.
add
Well,
that.
here, I can explain it, and this is something I think is a misconception that happens a lot because even though I worked at a center for it at OU, even though I am trans, there is so much, right? There is a lot, and I'm not going to act like there isn't, and I'm not going to act like everyone has to know it all. I don't know it all.
Right.
But to put it simply, there's two different types of spectrums that have been talked about now for at least at least seen in the type of way that it is now, and that is gender and sexuality. Now, gender comes to the idea of identity. I am transgender. I don't see myself as a male. I see myself as a woman because I am. Sexuality is where gay, lesbian, asexual, that's where all those connotations come in.
Okay.
Completely
But
separate.
to answer exactly. But to answer your question, I have dated and have had relations with men before, and I that is something that had crossed my mind even when I was younger.
So at the point in time that you dated men, did you consider yourself a transgender or gay at that point in time?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So by the time when I was starting to figure out my gender identity was also the same time I was trying to better understand my sexuality. One thing that I was very lucky for at the time is when I was 15, I still identified as a male, and I was trying to figure out that whole process because as a 15-year-old, that is a very has a very wide scope that especially like some dumb middle school kid who spends all of his time in the theater isn't really going to be able to fully understand yet, right? And I met a girl, and we had been together for a very long time, longer than I would really have expected someone in middle school. And something that really helped us at the time was being around each other and trying to understand our own identities. Now that I see myself and I am a trans woman, he has already gone through the process, this person I dated, of testosterone because he had discovered with me that he was a trans man. And that caused, I don't want to say confusion, but it caused conversation. And something I think that was very difficult, especially for a 15 turning on 16-year-old boy and girl, trying to figure that out with no one really teaching them, no one really guiding them. I was lucky with this beautiful thing that we know as the internet. So I could Google those questions. I could YouTube a TED Talk. But it took time to get there, and it took time to understand that. And it took even longer to be able to find a word to put that out.
Nikki, I know Nikki is having audio problems. If I can interrupt for 1 second. Nikki, do you have anything to add really quick on this?
I'm just listening very intently to get an understanding because while I support, any person and choosing their own identity, I'm not very knowledgeable, and so I'm learning from you
It
today,
is good.
Jane.
Just want to make sure you have any
I do
questions.
have a question. I'm kind of holding on to it. I'm just listening and getting stoned.
Hide from your kids.
The reason I asked Jane this was because, and Keith knows this, I know a lot of gay women, and they are my friends. Okay, and it's a kind of a different situation, but it's still something I don't understand. They consider themselves gay, but they have children that they had with men. And I used to tell them, I said, and I've talked to a couple of them, I said, how can you consider yourself gay if you had sex with a man and had
Can I feel that for a second?
Go ahead.
On this one?
Someone.
Sorry, 'cause first of all, almost every gay person out there, a good percentage, have at one time tried things with a woman. Gay is also something that many people have been ashamed from, and they've tried not to be gay. They have tried to live lifestyles. They have tried to do so many things not to be that person they are, because especially in our age, and Bill, you're older, Elena's younger, but especially for the older groups on here, we didn't grow up where that was okay in any way. So it was a fear to do it, and you try. But also the truth is that many straight people have tried their wonderful experimentations. No, but they have tried. They have tried their experimentations with guys as well because they want to know. People want to know. People want to try. And one thing that I've seen a lot of gay people want are families. And sometimes the way to get that family is to do that. And family outweighs you wanting to come out and be yourself. It really does. They want the kid. They want that perfect family life because a lot of gay people are feminine. A lot of them are. And they want that kind of perfect home life that they saw on TV. They wanted to come forward. So that's why some have, and then they just get tired, like, I can't do this, I want to be myself. And that's what they end up doing. That's my personal opinion on it.
The other thing I want to comment on real quick was, Jane said, so you hear trans female, transgender female all the time. You don't hear transgender man too much anymore anywhere you go.
I know a lot of transgender men.
I don't hear as much, but I do know a lot of them as well.
I don't go where you go, all right? Damn it, no.
So what do they do? Do they take testosterone and try to become a man in the
it's pretty much
physique?
It's a similar
do they go
process
through
from what I understand.
Yeah.
Just from having friends that I've been along with through their transition. It's a lot of like the hormone replacement treatments. That process is the same as just taking testosterone. And just like with transgender women, some of them do surgical procedures, some don't, but it's the same thing in reverse.
A penile implant.
To get back to some of these comments real quick.
There's a lot of different types of surgeries.
The only thing I could say is the gay women that I know that are couples, all right, they don't do the transgender thing or say the transgender thing, but there is always
Because they're
someone who's
probably
trying
not
to act a little bit
transgender.
butch. So
I wanted to ask when Jane gets back. I want to ask her about this in a second. But first, I want to go through the comments. Welcome back. First, I want to go through some of the comments because I have a question about what Bill was saying there. Thrasher says wrestler Scott Hall died this week from 3 heart attacks, getting hip replacement surgery. Surgery should be a safety concern. Definitely, you never know what's going to happen. And I agree with that.
Wow.
Go, Jane. Surgery is a concern for anybody. And as a guy, nobody should really question the idea of losing your 2 best friends. And, it's just
All 3
something
of them.
guys don't imagine. I don't care
All
what you're
3 of them.
into, what you like. It's got to be an extremely hard decision to do. It's part of you, and surgery is extremely dangerous. And that's not something I think anybody really wants messed up in the process.
So why on the porn sites do they still call them transsexuals?
Because
it gets more
porn sites are not politically correct.
There is truth there.
You want
Okay.
to know who's running porn sites? 60-year-old men. They don't fucking know anything.
Or just
Hey, not all of
I'm
us.
not 50, I'm
I didn't
58,
say
damn it.
all 60-year-old men are running porn sites. I'm saying the people who are running porn sites are 60-year-old men.
younger.
I gotta
Thrasher
bring
also
my dog out there to eat your dogs, damn it.
Thrasher also says he's 42, and that's still young, Thrasher. Or just say Elena. Elena is one of the youngest ones we have on here. Old man hearing. Perfect home life from TV, and let's go, Jane. I agree with that. She's sweet. All right, we'll get back to some of those. I just wanted to get some of those out of the way really quick. My
Real quick,
question
if I could,
for Jane. Oh, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I feel as though I've interrupted this entire time. But I wanted to just really quick add on top of what you guys were saying too, with this back with talking about the lesbian issue, the kid issue, and the understanding issue, the experimentation issue. And the best way I can really say it is, you never know if you like sucking dick until you try it. I don't mean to put it in such a profane way.
That's true.
But it's true.
And you don't. Like, you really don't know if these are the things that you are or enjoy or can understand until you go through that, right? A movie that I think does it some justice. I'm not a big, I like the movie, but I can agree that there's problems with it. And that's Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy. And in that film, they discuss the idea of a lesbian who has clearly had sexual relations with men in the past. And she has a really great monologue in that film of like, yes, the reason why I'm a lesbian is because I had to figure out that I am a lesbian. Just because these things were able to be easier equipped for you, were not easy for me to equip.
There's something to be said with the time frame too, especially like I was talking with Bill and his age and probably the age of a lot of his friends. A lot of them were probably hiding for a good period until it became almost a norm for them to be able to come out safely and say what they wanted to say because more people were doing it. So they were hiding it for so long, and they were afraid of losing people like their friend Bill or their friend Keith or their friend Lenny or Lena or anybody at that time because it wasn't widely accepted. And when it started to become widely accepted, that's where they're making the choice. I can finally be me and who I want to be. Go ahead and try, Nikki. My question, I want to go back to something. No, Nikki. Sorry. That's okay. To what the King was saying when he was asking about were you gay, did you consider yourself gay first, Jane? Or did you consider yourself trans? What I'm curious, and I've always been curious, what is the deciding factor? Since a lot of gays are extremely feminine anyway and have those feelings and emotions, what made you decide I'm not a feminine man, I'm a woman?
So I think part of me kind of always knew. So I remember a lot of times when I was a kid that I kind of was able to find myself more comfortable around girls in my class than the boys. And for me, how I see the world is through the best way I can really explain it is the idea of like a camera angle, you know. So like say having a conversation. Like I was telling this to Keith the other day as we were sitting down in his basement. I was telling him, for me, how I'm seeing this conversation.
how I'm seeing this conversation is whenever I'm speaking, the camera's on me. Whenever he was speaking, the camera's back on. I guess I was meant to be a filmmaker. I don't know. But whenever I had that as a kid, I couldn't really think of myself as looking like a boy. I would picture myself looking more like a girl, like in these different types of movies and games that I had grown up with and had a big impact on me. This stuff was always just in my head. And as time went on and I got older and thought that that was something that wasn't a part of me and I was a kid, it never really went away, that feeling. So I guess for me, it was just something that I kind of like always kind of knew, but just didn't know how I knew or knew that I could.
So kind of like, just with, I guess, straight guys having guy friends and stuff, they just have a different emotional attraction to them that isn't sexual, and you felt more that you were like one of the girls
So
more than anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
All right.
Lenny.
what you just said, my best friend in high school is a gay man. And he grew up wanting to be around myself and my girlfriend Gina because exactly what you just said. But he is not a transgender. He's a gay man, and he still feels the same
Sit
way.
down.
And my
Sit.
best friend right now, and
Okay.
boatloads of the gay male horse world that I live in, feel that exact same way. But I think it's different now because we have given them now more labels. Back to that label game, because way back when, it was just a gay man was not attracted to women. They were attracted to and wanted to hang out with us because my gay male friends wanted to hang out with the girls because they enjoyed the things we enjoyed. They enjoyed the same, playing with dolls if you're a little kid instead of a truck. And I've asked every single one of them that exact same question. Is like, when did you know? And they're like, when I was a little kid, I'd rather play with my sister's dolls than my brother's football. That just
And I guess
was, yeah.
as society, a lot of that was our fault for assuming that that was just a gay person.
But I think because
know.
of social media and because of all the different groups now and acceptance now, they have given every different person that is different a new label. I mean, seriously.
It gets so
sometimes
it-
confusing. It does.
Can I say something else about
Yeah.
When they're
labels
just
and
all
groups?
individuals.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to labels. But yeah, go ahead, Elena.
I like Jane was saying, I think that it's super important that there are different labels because then people that are going through the same thing have people that they know they can relate, not talk to, but relate to about it. So Jane finding out that, is it finding out you were transgender, discovering that you were transgender?
Or deciding.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was a
So for me,
decision.
It is a decision.
for me,
It's
it was
changing to make a change.
well,
in
for
your
me,
sexual
it started off trying to really understand what identity I could really fit with, what clicked. So when I first tried to figure that out, I thought I was bigender, which is the identity of going by two different gender identities, going by both he and she pronouns, for example. It doesn't have to be he and she, but as an example. And as time went on, the more and more I just noticed myself being called he, the more I just really hated it. And the thing is, at the time, even though it was bigger and more talked about in 2016 and 2017, doesn't mean it was easy to find other people for a while.
Right.
Even today, I am a single woman, and like many other single people, especially around my age, we are on a bunch of different dating apps, Tinder and what have you, and it's difficult for me because it's very hard to find other like-minded people on those type of dating sites, and with that, it was even harder as a child to find other people. There wasn't anyone that I knew of at my school. Maybe there was, but I didn't know. It wasn't talked about. We didn't have a class to describe it or discuss it. So for me, I was going through the deeper bowels of the internet, trying to find more people on Reddit, trying to find people on Tumblr. And it became a way to finding solidarity and a community. And I think that's something that still stands for it today. Even though now we have to keep in mind, as long as social media is around, things have become more exaggerated through social media. And I think that's what also causes a lot of issues. The things that brought community is now causing this idea as though that there is
Right.
too much or it's too forced. But I think there was a lot of kids my age when we were trying to figure that out, that this was where we really could. And
I
now
don't
being able to,
I don't think it's too much or too forced. I think the idea of it being too much comes from the fact that it's not just trans. You're part of a group of trans, and you can meet people and find out what form of trans they are, whether they're keeping parts, not whatever you want to talk about with your other trans friends. I get that part. I'm saying expecting everybody to understand it once sometimes is overwhelming. For us, where do we communicate if we're not part of the trans community? Because now you're labeling everybody somewhat different. And we're trying to figure that out. And that's where we're feeling overwhelmed. For you, Jane, it's probably very freeing to have so many groups that you could be a part of. But for others, it's overloading. It's confusing. And we don't know where to stand. We're afraid to offend now. Because if you don't say, if you don't say it right, some people get overly offended. Beyond
That's when
just
they
because
just
we don't
don't know.
understand. Yeah, we just
Right.
want to know. Or they hit back with, that's my business. Well, it's your business, but at the same time, you want other people to accept who you are and understand you. Not you particularly, Jane, but people in the
Right.
situation.
and I think that's why I harken back to what I was saying earlier of this idea of like, you are 100% valid in the idea that you don't understand. It's not even the idea that you don't understand it. That is okay. No one went around one day in 2017, 2018 with a big old book, ABCs of LGBT, door to door, like they were Jehovah's Witness, and said, learn this. It for a lot of people, even me included, it was a very overwhelming thing to meet more and more people. But that harkens back to what I was saying earlier of like, at least for me, I'm more happy to answer every question that you may have. But I'm not going to go into it expecting that you're going to ask me those questions. And
Right.
that's why I say, like, and again, that's where I think a lot of issue comes in social media, especially Twitter. People are so afraid to ask questions because people are afraid that they're going to be met with an attack and not an answer. And that's the issue. That's the issue I think that stands today that causes all that kind of confusion is because
But it's also
there's
a lot to take in. And the way I'm saying this is we had LGB, okay, the lesbian, gay, bisexual community. No problem. They added T. Okay, well, it's been years since they've added the T. People adjusted, people got used to it. But quicker and quicker they added Q, and I was one of the people, wait, Q, isn't that cover LGBT in there? But okay, we got Q.
So
And
what
now
is the
suddenly
difference
IA,
then?
and now wait, I'm a cis man, wait, I'm pre-op, I'm post-op, I'm a cis woman who's trans, I'm trans with this, and I'm trans without this, and I'm trans and I've done this, I'm trans, I'm not gonna do this, I'm trans but I like guys, I'm trans but I like girls. And it's just, there's no way to know. And with the 4 originals, now trans, I should say the 3 originals, because trans is very broad. If you're lesbian, you're a woman who likes girls. We got that, no problem. If you're gay, you're a guy who likes guys. We got that, no problem. If you're bi, you're a male or female that likes both. No problem. Trans hits. And now it's, okay, should I hit on you? Do I like you? Are you good? Are we going to be compatible? Is this going to be right? Because we can't just get those words and know what we're getting into, especially, and again, I'm referring as we did Elena in the previous show with the bar scene and stuff, and not the type of bar they'll go to, that there's going to be genuine people interested in you. And it is something that I think is a concern. And when other people don't get these answers, they're overwhelmed with the possibilities of what trans could be. It's kind of the equivalent of going up to people and saying, well, I'm not straight, you figure out the rest. You know, not knowing if you're, it's
Well, I
just,
think the issue with
okay.
like the bar scene and the dating scene, I don't think the issue lies within trans people. I think it lies within people, like other people not being accepting of trans people. So
But
And
maybe
you're
they
right.
don't like it.
no,
Let me say something.
and that's completely
Not that it's
fine.
bad, but I'm talking as far as attraction goes. Maybe they don't
Let me
like
say
it, so
something, and Keith will know about this. All right, my friend years back at a bar I used to go to, she's a short gay woman, and she started a LGBT night at his bar. And his business went through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
reason it went that way was because there was a lot of gay women coming in there who played softball and played darts and everything like that, and they all came in there. Well, when word got out, and for better respect, because they told me they weren't gay, but they were cross-dressers, big guys wearing dresses came in there. Well, the thing is when it went into a later stage, they started coming in earlier and earlier. Well, you had the people that came in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the guy got off work and he brought his wife and he brought his kids. They had a problem with a guy, I'm saying, and like I said, no disrespect, in a dress going in the ladies' bathroom. And their kid was in there.
I want to get to this topic too when you're done.
Instead of this son of a bitch, doing something about it and saying, hey, this is our timeline. And that wouldn't have been disrespectful, I don't think. This is our timeline because this is what we do at night and this is what we do during the day. He canceled everything.
I have something to say about bathrooms.
All right.
How many, when I go into a bathroom, it is to do one of two things. Both of them involve using the restroom.
Well, I thought it was maybe
Never
three
once.
things in there.
Never once in my entire life have I walked into a restroom, in a bar, in a store, literally anywhere, in a public restroom, and felt uncomfortable by the person who walked in before or after me. And I think people that have issues with people walking into a bathroom to use the bathroom, I think those people are disgusting. I think that it's absolutely ridiculous that there are people in this world that think if trans women use a women's bathroom, that somehow now their child is being sexually assaulted, because that doesn't fucking happen.
The only thing I said about anything,
bathroom or no, and I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking.
No, I get you. But I told him, I said, you got stalls.
I'm going to get to this in a minute, Thrasher.
Anyone that went in there in the ladies'
bathroom,
bathroom, there's stalls in there, so no one sees anything.
No one's seeing your genitalia.
In a lot of bathrooms, very much they would be.
It was the fact that the parents saw the fact that person was in there and their kid was in there. That's what it was.
That's an issue with the parents.
Hold on, Lenny. Hold on, Lenny. Go ahead.
I said I have the same problem with my son is autistic and he's 18 years old and I have to help him in the bathroom. So I typically don't go to restaurants and stuff like that unless there is a family bathroom or a one-person bathroom. Because of that exact same scenario, is I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable by bringing a man into the ladies' room and make someone else uncomfortable.
There used to be a bar on Woodward.
It should make people uncomfortable, is my point.
It shouldn't, but it does.
There was a bar on Woodward, and it was called Heaven and Hell. All right? So downstairs, it was rock and roll. It was hell. Upstairs, it was a gay bar.
Okay, I want to... I appreciate your story. I want to steer away from this story a little bit. I hate to do it right now. I want to hear... I don't want you to leave or anything, but I want to get off of the bathroom topic as much if we can do that, because that's going to definitely create a little bit more. And I want to get to these comments because what we're saying is relating to what Thrasher here was saying. What confuses me is if gender is the question of the day, which it is, why is sexuality being discussed? I see that Jane says she's a woman. Why do we jump to who she wants to sleep with? I think that it takes a bit more personal level at that point. We're eating the elephant all at once instead of bites. Well, the purpose of the show, and one of the reasons we're hitting that, is this is what confuses people, and I want to give Jane a chance to answer because she is obviously in that situation, and she understands better than a lot of us. A lot of people do equate the two, and even though Elena's argument is against me on this, I do think that sexuality plays a huge part, and the reason sexuality to me plays a huge part in being transgender is because you are switching sexualities. If you are a guy already that likes guys, you're going to go from gay to straight. If you are a guy who likes girls, who's going to become a woman, then you are going from straight to gay. And what kind of things, I do believe that sexuality plays a huge part because that is something you have to change to live as a different gender.
Well, I think that's why they don't call it transsexual anymore, and they call it transgender.
Do you know what I think?
Which I agree, but I think it plays a part.
I think the issue is that we're looking at everything here, all these different terms, as categories, and not a word with a definition, right? Like, no one has like, and I know this is really making a blanket statement over it, but no one gets upset when there's a fork and a knife and a spoon in the same area in your silverware drawer, right?
I do. I'm
And-
about
I
that
do.
shit.
I separate them up.
Okay, fine. We're all the normal people out here. I'm talking to
We're
you.
not normal.
But I think that's where the bigger issue is coming from, right? Yes, I can totally see where you're coming from with it, Keith, because I've been asked that a lot, especially in the past couple of years, because I see men, but I also see women. I see non-binary people, but I'm pansexual, right? But that doesn't mean I have to be categorized as a trans woman pansexual. I mean, I guess that makes it easier for someone to understand.
I was going to
But
say,
these are-
I think that makes it easier for you technically being pansexual as far as a lot of these people that would have an effect.
Wait,
In a
wait,
sense,
wait.
as far as linking, not to be trans, as far as linking asexuality to the gender change, because you can still like the same people you like in a sense. Okay, you can still be what you're not changing from gay to straight by becoming transgender. Okay, so if you want to be identified now as a woman and you just liked women, you are becoming sexually now a lesbian woman because you're identified as a woman, and a woman who likes other women is. If you are straight and you're a guy that, or sorry, you're gay and you're a guy that is, however, you know what I'm saying on that, because I'm just like confusing myself saying it. But if you're pansexual or you're bisexual and you change your gender, you're not going to be seen any different as far as your sexuality. So it's a little easier not having to play the sexual role. Oh my God, if I have this, I'm going to be a gay man
All right.
now, or if I have this, I'm going to be a lesbian woman.
What is pansexual?
Okay, so pansexual means if I'm attracted to a person enough that I want to have any sort of relations with, it doesn't matter if they identify as a man, a woman, non-binary, which means not identifying with a gender. Like, if I think that you are someone that I can have that connection with, what you identify with doesn't bother me. And I think that might also cause some issue when I'm answering some of these questions. That's why I said at the very beginning, I can't speak for all trans people.
Which is
And I know that you guys understood that, but I'm also, in myself, a very special case of that, being pansexual. But Thrasher, is that the person's name on the Switch?
Yeah.
It makes a really great point.
He's our biggest fan of the
show. With a lot of questions of sexuality, I think can be answered more in the idea of trying to figure out the idea of what gender means and what that identity means. Now, I know I'm not the host, Keith, but fuck you, I'm gonna do this anyway. I can.
No, you don't have that power. Watch. See, that's the joy of the host. All right. Sorry,
I can tell that the king has had some very fun and interesting facial expressions during this time. I want to hear him out. I want to know what he has to say. If he has anything to say at all, if you'd like.
Oh, he definitely, definitely. Go ahead, Bill. Bill's just quiet now, listening.
I'm listening.
I don't even think he's listening.
I'm listening.
No, go ahead. He does
what do you
want to
think?
hear you now more, Bill. She wants to hear you now, Bill. See, I keep doing that still. And
I'm
we've
gonna
got to
get
get to
you.
that. Go ahead, Bill.
I like I said, there's been so many things that I haven't understood, and I've learned some stuff while we're sitting here talking about this and stuff. And it's stuff that my friend, who is gay, I don't talk to her about it. I sit there, I accept, and I don't get into it deep with her or anything like that. But she knows. I mean, we know. All right, so, and this is a totally different situation because I don't understand this one either. We know two people who are hermaphrodite, and one identifies as a woman, the other one identifies as a man, and that's as far as we've ever talked about it and stuff like that. And like I said, the when I was young, all right, when you were called, if the word transgender came up, that always meant that you were a man who was having an operation to become a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You
it was
didn't
the
see
whole
it the
blown
other
thing.
way.
It was the whole blown thing.
Cool.
That's the only time the word came up.
Well, that's what I meant by we used to have a clear definition of it. That's what it
Yes,
meant.
and like I said, with me now, like I said, I mean, I listen to the girls and stuff like that. I mean, I've sat over there in the garage, me and 16 gay women. And my friends used to say, well, you're just hanging out with gay women. And I'd send them a picture. I said, who would want to hang out with these women?
Right.
And it was always the same thing, too, is, well, she acts like a guy. I said, but she's a woman and she still feels the same pains when someone fights with her, when a guy comes up to her and says, oh, you acting like a guy, I'm going to kick your ass. And then I usually show up and beat the hell out of that guy. But the whole thing, like I said, the stuff that went on when I was young is different, and I've been trying to learn.
Yeah, because way back when it was gay or straight and transsexual.
Right.
Gay meaning both men or women. You were
And way back then, when a woman was bisexual, right?
that
A
was,
guy
like,
thought that was
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
Which is
guy thought
gross.
that
That
was
was
hot.
like the best.
Truth.
Hell yeah, I'm going to get her, and she's going to bring her friend.
Yeah.
Now, I
And
want
I'm
to
really,
ask.
I really
ahead.
hope that we don't go keep talking about that, because we talked about this on our LGBTQ show.
Yeah.
Men that
Which was a good one.
sexualize bisexual women are fucking disgusting. Or
It may be for some, but you know what? I know women that also find two guys extremely hot, and they are very turned on by that as well.
Correct. But
So
me
there
being a
are.
bisexual women should not turn I don't want men to look at me more attractive because I'm a bisexual woman. Does that make sense?
No, I totally understand that.
My
Well,
sexual
no,
identity.
you don't want that. You don't want that, and you don't think it should happen the other way. But it happens.
That's, I think, yeah.
No, but I think that we should try to make strives for it not to happen, because
And
my
they can-
sexuality is not a fetish.
It's
So-
not gonna
Oh,
happen.
amen,
It'll
honey.
always happen.
So, Jane, I have a question for you. I asked what you were fighting for. I asked what you were fighting for. We got more comments for Thrasher. We got a lot from Thrasher. We're going to get to that. But if you're listening really closely, one of the issues you're fighting, and not you, but trans people are fighting, as well as gay, lesbian, and all them, are age groups and age differences. I mean, the people most in your corner right now is Elena. I'm kind of an indifferent because I live the lifestyle I live to begin with. On that, I agree, but there are things I don't understand. And the older people like Bill here and Lenny was saying, way back when you knew what it was, you knew what it meant. Do you think you're going to end up changing the older group? Or who are you focused on fixing? If the younger group understands it and the older group has the problem, which one are you trying to fight for?
Well, I think the issue that I want to start with is Stonewall wasn't just a bunch of gay men. So there were tons of people just like me, way before I was even born, way before Atlanta was even born. We're just at that age where we're just at that time where we're actually able to have a platform to speak about it.
Yes.
And I think the issue that really stands is not in the ideas of trying to teach the boomers a lesson, but it's one of the things where those older people who don't understand it, a lot of them, are the kind of people that don't think I should really exist. Don't think that I even do exist, or I don't believe it. And so I guess the fight for me is not to teach everyone that is over the age of 40 or 50 that their ideas are wrong, but just more of the desire, and like I said earlier, to be able to go outside and act how I am, and go to my job and not have to go by my dead name and not have to act like something that I'm not, because then it makes people more comfortable, because then they don't feel extremely confused or that they can't find a way to understand it. Or the scarier thing is that they refuse to understand it and they make you feel bad for it. One thing that has been discussed a lot at my previous job, and I won't say where that was, and I won't say who this person is, because it's all very dramatic and it's all speculative and it's kind of BS. But one thing that got brought around by my coworkers is thinking that my manager at the time was transphobic, and that in itself causes all these implications and all these issues as to what really that kind of looks, right? Because for me, on one end, I couldn't see it, and on the other end, it kind of also causes that issue of, if I'm feeling this here, am I going to feel it anywhere else? Especially nowadays. It should be something where that's not a problem, right? And I'm not expecting in like the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years that suddenly we're all able to get along and we can all do like what we saw in like kindergarten. All
I
those
think you
different
will.
like,
Because I think in
I
20 years, when your generation hits this age group, that is going to make a change. That is going to become more the norm than it is now. But people are coming
Right.
in really early trying to change the world with people who have just lived longer in this world at this point in a different view of it, which isn't right. What Thrasher said here is in the situation he's ran into transgender people, one, it wasn't my business what they identify as. I'm going to treat them the same as anyone else. And two, who said anything about sleeping with each other? They asked me what aisle the dog food was on. And to your point of what you were just saying, Jay, that should not be an issue. If you're shopping, if you're talking, if you're friends, if you're anything like that, or you're bumping this, it should not matter whether you're straight, gay, transsexual, wear a yellow bunny on your head. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, you should be allowed to do, and you should be allowed to be yourself and be comfortable. And everybody of any age group should learn that one. The point of this show and what we are talking about are those that are trying to learn, but feel attacked by trying to learn, that feel that they're wrong and they've lived their whole life wrong by trying to learn, and they're accepting, but they don't understand it, and they want to the point that they're afraid of it. And especially like you were saying with social media, in today's world, you are so afraid. Because if you say something wrong, you are blasted everywhere, especially if you're somebody in power, especially if you're somebody people look up to or idolized, or a position of power, or an actor or celebrity in any sense. You are blasted everywhere that you're afraid to do this. And how do you ask these questions without being labeled a transphobic, or homophobe, or anything like that? How do you ask it? People need to learn, but they don't need to constantly live in fear and be punished for it. And I'm going to turn to Elena on this one, because Elena, as much as I do love you, you seem to fight that the whole world should change like that.
I don't think, and I agree with what you're saying. I do come off a little bit harsh at times, but I don't think that the whole world needs to change like that. I think that the issue that trans people face is most of the time not people trying to learn, it's people trying to hate. I feel like there's a lot of resources,
Well said.
especially it's 2022. We have all of the resources in the world. There are outlets for you to learn. The internet's crazy. Like, you can learn anything you want to learn if you try to. The issue that I have with people not accepting trans people is that they're not trying to learn. They're just angry that everything isn't the way that it was 20, 30 years ago.
Well, let's face it, though, they've not lived in a different world.
Yeah.
No, and I understand, but the
taught,
world is constantly changing, and I understand the way that you were taught means a lot. I understand that. However, there's a lot to say about growing and learning. I feel like as humans, we are constantly growing and learning. My issue is with the people that are growing and not learning.
A long time ago, Elena, a lot of people's lack of understanding with what it goes on with gay versus straight versus every label that is out there right now is they went to church, they learned a certain way, a man, a woman, that's how it was. There was no internet. You had dictionaries, you had books you had to kind of go through. You're not going to ever change those people that aren't out there caring to change. They grew up a certain way, and we acknowledge them as they are who they are. Just like I acknowledge Jane, you are who you are, and every single person is an individual and should be. Period.
And should be respected for that.
Lenny,
yeah.
I totally agree with that. However, I'm going to put an example as my dad right now. he grew up in a very Irish traditional Catholic household.
Mhm.
He went to Catholic school until he graduated high school. He was taught all of that and
Mhm.
then went into the real world and realized, hey, I shouldn't hate these people just because of the people that they sleep with or the way
But
they
he,
identify.
but
So
he
I'm
went
not
into the
fucking.
real world. Some people don't. Some people live
Well,
in their
there's a
But-
their
difference
world.
too. There's a difference I want to say with what you're taught as you're growing up. That's when you're
Right.
most impactful. That's when you can learn and change things. When
Right.
you're in your 20s, you're still on the mode of learning the real world. When you hit 40, 50 years old, you've lived 30 years in this taught world. So
No, and
to
I
have
agree, but my
somebody
dad's almost
do
60
it.
years old and he still made the change because he doesn't hate people because of who they fucking are. My issue is
Nobody
with people
hates
who
them.
hate.
It's
No,
not
there
about
are a
hate.
lot of people in this world that hate transgender people. There are a lot of people in this world that
Well,
hate gay
there's a
people.
lot of
My
people in this
issue
world
is with
that
people
hate
that
black
hate people.
blonde people, fat people, tall people,
Okay,
short
so
people. You know.
And I understand
yes,
that. My
that's been
issue is with people that don't want to learn and just want to hate. Because you can still learn even if you lived in this world for 30,
Okay,
40
what
years.
you said is
so,
not wrong. Before I get to Bill, what you said
Mhm.
is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with people who don't. The problem is people who don't want to learn and just want to hate. That's true, but at the same time, you're expecting them to learn at a pace you think is appropriate. You're not giving them the time. You can't look this stuff up. The internet is amazing. Have you looked at the internet? How many true facts do you get off the internet?
Not
How
many.
much
No, but
understanding do you get?
if you dive into the internet, you could find so many different articles about successful transgender people who are sharing their story, who are
It,
telling the shit that they went through, and the people that say, "Oh, I'm supportive, but I just don't know." They're not
according
trying to learn.
according to what the writer wanted to post and wanted you to know. The best way is to talk to real people. The
Right.
best way is to get in touch with people, but
Like
we're
this
afraid to
show
do
right
it.
now.
Somebody like Jay, she is right here to explain everything to us, to talk to us about how she feels, not somebody else telling us. And that's what the internet does. Some of us don't want that because at the same time, you're going to run across so much hate filled shit that it's going to confuse you even more. And it's really hard. You need to. What Lenny said is true too. You need to just be an individual and be able to talk to people because accepting is one thing, Elena. 100% we all should do. You know, and people who hate and refuse to change, they are wrong. But to be put on a deadline, this whole movement, considering the history, happened fast.
Yeah.
And
did.
it was put in everybody's face very, very quickly that you should change and be who you are. Can I get to Bill before I go back to you, Jane? Because Bill was going to say something really quick, then we'll go right to you. Go ahead, Bill.
the only thing I was going to say was, so if you have to think about, um, there are a lot of people that like Elena was saying, they don't like the LGBTQ, blah blah blah, anything like that. But a part of it is, and it's not actually the same thing, but close to it. It's like racism. All right.
Yeah.
Back in the '60s, when the black people tried to get power and they were working and doing what they were saying, the African American people and stuff, everyone hated the African American people. And it's the same thing kind of in a way, because when the gay people, the LGBT people started, and then they had the pride parades and everything like that.
Gay rights.
It turns
yeah.
into something different, and everyone gets different ideas about shit. And it's stupid as hell. So
There was something to be said for it being shoved down people's throat when Pride first started. Now, I agree with Pride in a sense. There's certain aspects of Pride I do not agree with. That's true. But there's many things that I do agree with. But it felt when that happened, it was so overwhelming to people. But people got used to it. And people did accept it, and it took time. Now Pride happens, and straight people are like, whatever, and gay people are like, woohoo, Pride. And it's just a part of life, and it's normal. But we're not just throwing pride at us now. You're throwing everything and expecting the instant gratification of change. And that because I told you, because you know, you have to undo everything. And I'm not saying you're really guilty of this, Elena, because I know that you're passionate. And there's a big difference there. Because I know you do believe your biggest thing is you're fighting hate.
Yeah.
And I agree with that 100%. So, and I get that about you. But it is a lot for people to take in. Like I said with Jane, she's a wonderful woman. but I constantly, out of habit, through no disrespect, am still saying he. I'm trying so hard not to, but some people come off as I'm an asshole because of it. And I'm not trying to be. I genuinely care about Jane. I want her to be comfortable. I want her to know she's got friends, and I don't want her to think, or anybody else, that I am hateful because I haven't quite gotten used to it. And I think that's what scares people. And I think using the words like "you're hateful and won't learn" does scare people, because some of us, not all of us, are trying really hard.
No, and I totally agree. Some people are trying really hard, and I think that that's absolutely wonderful. Like, absolutely fucking wonderful. And like, you like sometimes referring
Oh,
to Jane
Atlanta,
as
I'll
he.
get there.
I know that that is an accident, like, and I get that. And we've talked about this on a
Yeah.
previous show. Like, I go to school with someone who's non-binary and was introduced to everyone at school as non-binary using they, them pronouns, and people at school still misgender them.
Yes.
And that makes me irritated. I understand that it can be very difficult when you know someone before their transition, changing that. I get that that could be difficult to change.
Or just by view. I mean, Jane, respectfully, Jane, if I ran into you, I'm naturally going to say, "How you doing, guy? How you doing, man? What's up?" You know, because she's not dressed or looking the part, and I don't want to offend her doing it, but it is something that is instilled in people, and it's hard to get that out. Before we respond, and Jane, I would like you to respond as well, because you've been silent for a minute. I'm sure you're absorbing all this. And Nikki, you have your chance when you want to open up, because I see your constant things. Let me know. But I'm going to go through some of these because we are backlogged in comments beyond belief. All right, so let me go through this really quick. We'll stop if we have to on certain ones. Starting with Thrasher, going back a few here. What if male by sex, but a female by gender, and I am still attracted to women? Am I gay? And that's what I was referring to with sexuality. And if you have a comment on it, let me know really quick, and I'll stop on these, because that's what I was saying. Sexuality does kind of play a part, because what you transition into will also affect your sexuality, in a sense. Question was, who am I? I see that society always takes it to the next level. Who am I going to marry or sleep with? Finding out who you are is hard. I think that's pretty much an agreement on here. It takes a long time. Society puts a huge amount of weight on sex. That's where I'm going with this. I'm not saying that any of you are wrong for making the connection, but that's like saying my favorite food is salad. Oh, you must be vegan. No, but if you like salad, it's possible you are. And just because you like salad and I throw you a steak, unless I know you're vegan, those little tips can help, okay? Do you put bacon on your salad? Also, I'm a jerk, because Keith is Cherokee for jerk. And you knew I was Cherokee Indian. I love that. He also says, I'm not afraid. Idris Elba is one sexy son of a gun. Everything we talked about, basic human decency. And it takes only one. This is something we were talking about. It only takes one wrong syllable to get "quote unquote" canceled. We've done so many things, especially on the open forum, regarding cancel culture and stuff like that. And that is the fear. Does anybody have anything to respond to on that before I continue on? Because I want to get through these. Sorry.
I don't know.
All right.
Thing here,
People are trying to broaden their
Go
horizons.
ahead,
They
Jane.
feel like they're walking a minefield. Let me get through a few of these. You don't realize how backlog we are, so I want to make sure real quick, because if there's something in the comments that she would like to answer, I want to make sure she gets the chance to as well.
Yeah, I promise I'll shut up.
Well, you as well. Anybody, obviously. Bill left. Thrash says, last year I was playing Rocket League with lesbian lady. She flat out said that shot was gay. 10 minutes later, my brother said something was gay, and she flipped on him. And that's what I mean. People are afraid to say certain things. Even that term, even getting that out, I still find myself occasionally, extremely rarely, because it's been limited in my vocabulary compared to when I was younger, saying something's gay because of who it offends. I find it funny, and I don't care. I'm half gay. I don't care. I find it funny. But it is what you say that matters. They're following the wrong God. God tell we're all sinners. Okay, that was something else in response to. FYI, Jane's the world champ. Let's see the belts.
one really quick.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I might.
You're a little staticky.
One moment.
Yeah, we're not hearing you very well.
Can you hear?
No.
No.
Shit.
We heard that.
We heard that.
Turn my phone off.
That's better. Good.
So real quick, let's do this because
Awesome.
my friend would kill me if I did. So, group, I'm the only girl in the group. For the what?
You are
And
cutting
We
out
can't
quite a
hear
bit. Yeah, you are cutting out a lot.
We,
It's just breaking up every
me
other
and a
word.
group.
Do me a favor, Jane, just to check it out really quick. Could you log off of the show really quick and just unplug and replug your microphone in, and then just log right back on? Use that same link to log back on.
No, I technology, but
Yeah, we can't hear anything you're saying right now. Okay, so we'll get back to that. I'm going to go through some of the comments while she does that. Brandon here says, I feel like it happened fast because the people of that community were tired of hiding themselves for so long. The final side, enough was enough. We are here. It's time to accept us. Rightfully so. And it really is. But it's still asking a lot to happen that fast. We have Bill back. Bill, how you doing?
Sorry.
That's okay. It happens.
Someone knocked on the back door and the dog was trying to tear down my house. So
That makes sense. And I'm not saying that there wasn't a time or there wasn't a moment to click like that. And Elena, do you want to respond to that at all? Because you're the one of the ones who said. Actually, hold on. We got Jane back here.
Oh my god, I fixed it.
Oh my God!
Oh,
We
yeah.
can
Oh my
hear
god,
you.
I
This is
fixed
so
it.
much
Holy
better.
shit. Yes, it's the studio. It wasn't me. I can't be a filmmaker. Fuck all of you. So anyway,
All right.
Can we-
You were
can we
saying,
fix-
Jane.
can we thank you. Okay. So,
that's
just
much
real quick
better.
about the championship here. Just because I feel as though, let me turn this down now because I actually have control over how this is now. I'm so happy.
You sound
okay.
fantastic now. I'm like really
Thank
happy
you.
about it.
Oh my god, I can't believe for an hour and 30 minutes it was so
Okay,
bad.
let's start all over. No,
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Pull up that intro. Okay, so real quick. Me and a group of high school kids, my friends, all of them are guys except me. We called ourselves the fuckwads. It was a thing. It's a long story to how we got there, but a couple of us are still friends to this. Well, we're all still friends to this day, and a couple of us became big wrestling fans. And so every time there's a pay-per-view, we put up the Fuckwads Championship. And at this last pay-per-view for
Sit down.
AEW, I
Sit
didn't
down.
win the most predictions, but there was a tie, and I won a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
So I'm the champ right now till WrestleMania. I'm very happy about it.
Good for you.
There we go. I just got that out.
As you should be. Drina's here. Drina, how you doing? We always love to see you on here.
Hi,
She says
Drina.
watching with Sweet Sides, Detroit, Michigan, USA. Sorry I'm late. That's okay. We're used to that.
I'm
We
sorry,
love
my
you.
microphone was
Still love you.
terrible. It's okay. We both.
That's why Drina was late. She's like, I'm not going on to that motherfucker fixes their microphone.
I should have known.
All right.
Oh, I'm so happy it's fake.
Oh, unless you hate pizza, leave me alone. I try not to skip most things you say. I'm just trying to get through it. I live in the original home of the Cherokee. No way. Yes, I am, Thrasher. Also says, I was in Savannah for training. I saw a lady walking her dog, and some old dude went up to her dog and started playing with the dog, and she said, you're a good buddy. She said, she's a she, and stormed off, and the old man yelled back, I got female buddies. That makes sense, I guess, with a dog, too. And people do that with their pets, too. I didn't really think about that, but they really do that with their pets as well.
So now that everyone can hear me, I have a few things I need to say.
Okay, turn your mic up a little.
Oh, you asked so much of me.
You have control now.
Just talk
how is
louder.
this? Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
Oh yeah. Now let's get serious for a second.
All right.
One thing I wanted to point out. Oh, hi, Jake. So one thing I want to point out that Keith had said earlier was that everything happened so fast, and the thing is that it didn't. It just seemed like it did because it wasn't on the news like it should. Like I said, Stonewall happened many more years before gay marriage became legal. And I just use Stonewall as an example here. We could also use things like Harvey Milk and so many other people that are very responsible for the community that we have today. But it's the issue of, again, how things have come up so much on the internet. And that's something I wanted to bring up because the internet was brought up on both sides of the argument here from both Keith and Elena. I think that's what causes a huge divide. I think that's where the biggest gray area comes from, is the fact now that everyone has a voice, which is good, but it doesn't mean that everyone needs to always say what's on their mind. And I think that's what also causes the issue that lands, again, on both sides of the argument, is that there are always going to be a few rotten apples in your bushel. People who want to understand are going to be categorized by all those rotten apples because one person bit into it and got a worm. Right? Now, we can't act like there's not worms, but I think it's so easier to remember the worm than that one really crispy apple. Right? And that goes from both sides. It's so easy to remember being attacked than being informed. And
That's why we need open discussion like this, so I
Right.
appreciate that.
And I think that's what's so really good about this, is that there's not a sense here in the idea of an argument. It's an idea of understanding.
Yes.
And I think that's the issue that stands. And I think the fact that there's not as many things like this that are out there on a public forum that everyone can find, I think is an issue. Another thing, if there is a lot of answers or a lot of questions that have been left, thank you, Thrasher. Holy shit, was it really that bad?
Yeah.
You let me
When
go
we're
on
done,
that long.
go.
I'm
Well, we
not
couldn't
watching
kinda
this.
hear you.
I am
Yeah.
not watching this video.
We let you know when we could definitely not hear you. We let you know. We could kind of hear you the other times.
I will not be watching this video. I lived it. But really quick, there are a lot of great YouTubers on that are really great at giving that information. I haven't watched them recently, but one that I really enjoyed, their name was Ash Hardell on YouTube, and they have a whole playlist on YouTube as well called the ABCs of LGBT, where they go through every gender and sexuality and finding a way to best understand what the difference is, and by giving a true definition that it stands by. Now, of course, things become a bit more broad. There is always going to be an umbrella thing. And that's what I think is so difficult about transness, is because, in a way, it is an umbrella. Even when I thought I was bi-gender, that's still seen on that trans spectrum. It's a difficult thing. And
I'm offended right now. I'm bothered by a little bit of what you just said. I'm not truly offended, but I mean, you're separating people too that you want to be like you, and I'm not talking about you as being trans. Okay, that's not what I'm referring to with what you just said. One of the things you just said was there's YouTubers that discuss this and talked about that, and they go into detail, and it's a good place to learn. And Elena shook her head really fast, like, yeah.
Because I've watched all of their videos.
You're right.
Ash is great.
But how many people in the age group that are hateful and not learning are YouTubers?
No, I'm not saying
That
they
is
need
somebody-
to be YouTubers, but there are resources for them
No.
to learn if they
That
want
follow YouTubers. That aren't scared of the technology, that follow TikTok and YouTube and, I'll sound old, the internets and YouTubies and TikTokers and all that stuff. Like, they don't. These are not sources for your everyday people that you're trying to inform. They're
And that's
great
why
sources for you.
And that's why I said it, because if you have a question, anyone in here has a question that's left unanswered, I recommend checking out those videos
place to go,
to see if you can
right.
find an answer. I was saying that as a reference point for this video, not as a categorized generalization that you should look it up on YouTube just beforehand.
But those are where the answers is. Like, a lot of times the problem I think we have with these groups is the younger generation expects people to be following all this social media stuff where you can learn and be right and do all this, and the older generation doesn't follow this stuff.
Okay.
Doesn't know how. And it's a very big disconnect with how
They don't-
you want to inform people and how they want to learn.
They
Okay,
don't know
here's
how,
another
or
thing.
they don't want to know how.
Sometimes that's true too.
Let me also say this then. If you go to your public library, I'm sure now that you can find tons of books on the subject. Maybe not as descriptive as you may want, but there is a way to find these sources now. And I'm not saying shame on you for not going before, but something that's very great about how things are now is that you can find a whole bunch of books about it, because I'm sure 22 years ago, when I wasn't even on this planet, that wasn't even a possibility. And that's 1999.
We had internet in 1999. Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, like,
Of course, you had internet in 1999, but what I'm saying is the ability to
Welcome.
find these topics and these discussions. Not that it was impossible. It's not like we went around burning those books or anything, but it wasn't as easy to find or as accessible or as requested or as recommended in a way that it is now. And that's all I'm doing is recommending these things.
no,
right
it's a
now.
good recommendation. I understand what you're doing, but I'm trying to point out that there is kind of a disconnect with how people learn things.
This is true.
Because what Elena had said too about going on the internet, it's all over there. I know people my age. I'm a tech guy, so I absolutely get it all. But I know people who are my age, even a little younger than me, that don't know shit about getting on the internet. They don't know what the fuck TikTok is. They don't. They don't YouTube. It's annoying to them.
Which I
and
understand, but like
that's-
Jane just said, there are outlets and resources for people
No.
who are not internet people, and they're not doing it because they don't care. And I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, I just don't know anything about it." You don't know anything about it because you don't want to. Like,
But
you have ways to research.
But why would everybody research it? I guess this is one of my questions
You're
too.
not going to unless it's important to you. You're
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
Well,
and
well,
yes,
Exactly.
but trans.
That's
Wait,
the
but
bottom line.
trans.
It's not important to them.
Well,
Right.
no.
And
Well,
in
does
all
trans have to be
fairness-
important to me? And respecting people as individuals is important, but does every aspect of being trans have to be important to me?
I think there's a loss in translation here. I think
Please.
I think there is a divide here. What I think is being said here about the research that's on there for the. I'm not saying that this is something where. I'm not saying everything like everyone should do this. Everyone needs to do this. You need to go to your library. You need to learn how to use your computer, you boomer. I'm not saying that, and I don't think Elena's saying that either. I think
No.
what we're saying is that going back to what I was saying about that apple thing, right? For those apples, those good actual crispy apples, those who are actually curious and have questions, just like how everyone in this discussion forum has. It's good to always remember that everyone has a different way of doing it. Trying to figure it out. Keith is Chris Jericho.
Go ahead.
I like that one. It's important to keep in mind that there is a million different voices that are able to talk about this topic. Some in a way that, like for me, for example, I can't. Like, even though I worked in a place that gave me the tools to do it more, I don't know it all. Like, I can't tell you every different type of gender or sexuality that has
obviously.
come out now. But the thing is, for those who do want to know and feel so that it's something that they want to understand, the same thing that they're using to complain about me and not understanding me on Twitter, it's clear that you understand the internet enough to go on Twitter, and it's clear enough that you're able to use that kind of thing as an example here. So if you are curious about those things and you feel as though that it's not possible because those bad apples that are on my side that make you feel bad and make you feel like a piece of shit because you just don't know it, you're not with the times, like.
Right.
There are avenues to help with that if you want to learn it. But for those who don't want to learn it, then maybe you also should be going on Twitter and saying that this is all bullshit and that I'm just a
No.
man wanting to be a woman when I can't be, but I am. And I'm not saying that's what
No, I
anyone here
appreciate
is doing
that.
that.
And I think that's great that you were giving a jumping off point for people to learn. My comment was more based on the fact that the person who is closer to your age and the younger generation reacted like, yeah, it's all out there, which is good that you did, because it's for Elena, it is instinct. Like, yeah, it's all out there. I know every video by this person. I've seen it all. And everybody else on the panel is like, who is this? We don't follow YouTube. We don't know this. So until somebody gives us that jumping off point, it's hard to assume that the answers are on these sites. People
And my
don't
point
know.
by saying that,
Yeah.
no, and I totally agree, but my point by saying that was not like, well, you should have already figured it out. My point was that there are all of these resources for that, and thank you so much, Jane, for bringing up, like, there are books in libraries.
Yeah. But those
because,
are
like,
dated.
obviously there are books in libraries.
Not all
Because
of them
how
are
I've-
dated.
Right. But, like, all of what
was
I've
talking about
learned about
libraries.
the
Go ahead.
community. everything that I've learned, like, because I've been in situations in life where, like when I had my first like transgender friend, I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't know if it was appropriate to ask them questions about it. So instead of bombarding them with questions or just sitting here not knowing what I could or couldn't talk about, and I know that everyone's different, but going and finding those resources, for me, it's the internet and watching videos. For other people, it might be going to the library and reading books. That's fine. But for me, I went to the internet, found an answer to all of the questions that I had, and then learned so much that way as opposed to bombarding someone. And like I said, I know that everyone's entirely different, but by doing that, just like, I don't really want to call it research, because like I'm just like, that was just me learning about these individual people's lives going through something similar. So when I was learning all of that, I got to then take a step back and say, okay, now I know what would or wouldn't come across as appropriate or inappropriate in my first couple interactions with this individual. Like and I'm not saying everyone needs to do the extent of looking into things as I did.
Your point, I agree with so much with your point actually, but my argument, and I want to get to something. You got some really good things in the chat that I'm going to want to hit. That's some specifically for you, Jane. The point I was trying to make about it is people tell me I'm into automotive cars and stuff. They try talking to me about it. I'm not a big car guy. I know the basics of cars. You know, I'll learn from them. I'll talk to them. Because I'm curious, I'm going to learn from them. I'm not going to go and research everything about cars just because this person is something I'd like to be interested in, but I would like to talk to them and learn if it's about trees or nature or photography or something like that. And I know these are not human conditions necessarily that we're talking here, but you know, you're not going to research every single detail. You want to hear from people, and I think the most important thing is open discussion, as was said before, than trying to rely on people to do all this research from people that Jay said something, says I can't speak for everybody. And when you're doing your research online, you're hearing the view and assuming that's a speak for everybody. And same with the book, especially with the book, because that is one person's vision of what it should be. So it's good to talk to the people, but that does take a lot of time. So I don't disagree with you at all. I just was explaining that sometimes where people think the answers they're not there for everybody. They're not as easy as it seems to you, who the younger generation, let's face it, their phone is the basis of every single thing. They want to know everything because their phone. They've gotten so used to that.
I'm so fucked that you just
You're breaking up again.
Are you kidding me?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm going to tweet about Keith because I didn't like what he said there.
That's okay. Feel free. I don't read it. I'm not on Twitter. Now,
boom.
Jay, drop your @ I want to follow you.
I will. Okay.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about, but
perfect.
Okay, to the comments, because we have some questions specifically for Jane in here as well. First, Brandon says, hot take, if you're too old to work Google or YouTube, don't vote on legislation that will affect people that you aren't informed on. You don't get to order for the table when you are about. I do agree with that 100%.
The rest of the quote if you don't get to order for the table if you're about to leave the restaurant.
I was just going there. I
just know what he's quoting.
Yeah. Thrasher says, and I agree, that's the political aspect, and I don't think anybody should. We have the abortion one coming up next week, and believe me, we're going to talk about some of the political views on there. What it matters. Thrasher says, girl, if I go to the library, then I've got to admit to the world that I don't know how to read. They have picture books, but I don't know if you want to look at picture books regarding trans, so you might see things you don't want to see. Because there's some very detailed medical books out there. Brandon says that's where a lot of issues come from. Political figures continue to put out damaging legislation for the trans and gay community and people who are ill-informed to eat it up. And that isn't something that does definitely require change. You know, people thinking in government that they can control people's lives and how they feel, what they think, what they do, and who they want to be is something that definitely does have to change. And people voting on this just because it's on their side or their agenda or anything like that without being informed about these people or the communities which they're part of is another problem that everybody faces. And that is technically could be 50 shows coming up with what people don't face. It's not going to be, but it is. When you're getting into legislation, I agree. Don't vote on shit you don't understand just because you don't agree. And that's something a lot of people can learn about, especially when they're voting for trans rights or gay rights or lesbian rights or just human rights in general. Now, Drina is going to address Jane here a bit. So I'm assuming being late, you're transitioning. I believe that's talking to Jane, and feel some disrespect during this process, which to me isn't a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. You still mentally you, aren't you? Just a few, if any, physical changes. How far off am I?
You're not far off at all. Like, for me, one of the biggest issues that I go through a lot every day is my own body dysphoria. Like looking into a mirror and not seeing what I feel as though I should. And this past year, there, admittedly, there's a lot of things that have happened this year for me. Not even involving transness or my work into transitioning, just a lot. And the one goal that I've been able to stick with is learning and teaching myself that just because I don't look how my friends look or how people on TV look doesn't mean that I'm not looking the part that I am. It does cause a lot of issue, because I do want to have that, but that doesn't mean I'm any less of a woman because I don't.
I have a question for you about what you just said, and this is going to sound sexually geared, and I don't mean it to be sexually geared. You said when you looked in the mirror, you didn't like what you saw. Now, out of curiosity, based on your feelings, is it because there's a dick in front of you, or is it because your facial view and, like, what is it about that makes you say this is not me?
Right. So
that you're looking at. I don't mean that you don't have to answer the dick question. I'm just saying, is it as simple as that, or is it more complicated?
It's not as simple as that. If anything, to be perfectly honest, that has been the least of my concern. Has been my genitalia. That has been the one thing that I've actually not had any issue or gripe about. Again, just because I've done my research and I'm like, okay, I can go down this route and I could feel better, but I could end up with a lot more issues down the road, anyway.
In fairness, I knew that wasn't it. I just wanted you to explain what it was.
The issue that I have is, and I think this is still something that has come from an issue just from life, is I'm genetically, I was born with the chromosomes of a male, and so I genetically will grow like one. I am very broad. I have a very boxy frame. You know what I mean? The way how fat and muscle builds on me is very different from someone with different genetics than I do. And that is something that I have problems with every day. Every day. And it doesn't help, too, that I don't have as many things as I want in my wardrobe to try to help handle that issue and to teach. But I've been learning. I've been learning to accept that where I am right now, this is just how I look. When I'm able to get everything handled that I want to, I will be where I want to be. These are goals that I have to go through, and the more I put this sort of mental stoppage on myself, the more I go into that state of why bother. But the thing is that I should bother, I should care, because I need to care about myself.
And please understand when I'm asking some of these questions or bringing up certain points in that sense, it's not to dig at you, it's to try to ask the questions that many people are afraid to ask or
You're
afraid
totally
to address.
fine, Keith.
No. I'm saying also for the audience out there, it's not necessarily what I believe or follow. Some of it I am confused on, some I'm not. That's true. But it's just because people are afraid to bring things up. And people like Jane here, she is totally willing to talk if you just bring it up. And that's what people have to learn. That if you have the question, talk to the person, don't always be afraid. And I get my argument earlier, which I still stand by, sometimes it's scary to do. So I hope that nobody is offended by that. But I do want to speak for the voices who just don't quite get it and are afraid to offend somebody, because offending people is way too easy nowadays. Thrasher says, I recommend that today's day of opinionated media. If you want to educate yourself, find multiple sources and accept the info that they all agree on, which is a general rule with everything in the media. Multiple sources is a good thing. Uh, Jane, was there? I know you kind of answered this early in the show. Drina was not here. Was there a time you didn't know you were trans?
I'm so happy that I'm able to tell this story again because now I can actually do it with good audio. But for me, it was one of those situations where, like, in my head, I kind of always saw myself as a woman. The kind of mental picture that I would have of myself was always seeing myself as a girl or as a woman. I just, especially at a very young age, like when you're in elementary school or you're in grade school, you don't know how to explain that. You don't understand those things. And now, add that fact of misunderstanding in a world at that time that wasn't giving that kind of information. I don't know how school systems are now, elementary schools or grade schools, middle schools. I don't know if they have or want or whatever what they show. I didn't have sex ed like when I was growing up. So I didn't even have that. So I don't know what there is now. But for me, that was a difficult challenge that I wasn't able to start being able to tackle or comprehend until I was about like 15 to 17 when I was trying to ask those questions of myself and go to library, go to YouTube, go to as many places as I could to find the answers, because at the time I really didn't know anyone that was trans. And might I say, it has been very nice to know more people that are trans because it's people that can understand it now with me. And not that I dislike answering questions for those who don't understand, but it's something different when you have that person to relate to.
Was your family supportive?
So, my mom is very supportive. I posted a little bit ago online that I was going to be on this, and I told her I was going to be on this, and I will always say that I will always be a hassle for my mom, just in general. Just as a person, I will always be a hassle for her. And when I told her that I was trans, it added to that hassle, and then handled to that tackle. But she tries every day. Sometimes she'll still refer to me by my dead name or as he, and that causes issue. And when I was younger, I would get very offended by it, and I would be very upset. But as I've gotten older, which I guess is not that much older, I'm only 22, but I've learned to just be patient about that because this is all different for her too. And she's brought up to me before, like, I had you as my little boy. I had
Right.
you as my baby
Right.
boy, and being told that that's not what you see yourself as, it hurts her. It hurts her to know that I don't care for the name that I was given. But then we also had a conversation, and I found out that she didn't care for the name I was given anyway. So if that tells you who named me. But she tries very hard, and I'm very grateful for that. I give her shit all the time, and she really doesn't deserve it. But I really would not be who I am today without my mom. I'm very grateful. My dad doesn't know, and I'm able to say this expressly because I know he will not. He will never see this. Not because I don't necessarily want him to, but referring back to the Caitlyn Jenner issue, I don't want to throw my dad under the bus, but it was very clear that he's not accepting of those things. Right. He was just he grew up at that point and in the neighborhood that he did. Yeah. And for him, it means the world to him that he has his boy. It means the world to him to have a son. And sometimes, it bothers me. It bothers me a great deal. One of the things that I really do regret is never being able to come out to my grandmother, who I knew was not accepting of that stuff either. But my grandmother and I were very close. And sometimes I wish I had that courage and the ability to find a way to articulate it to her so that if we could have that conversation, I would have been ready to give that to her because I know at some point she would have been okay to listen. But for my dad, I'm not quite there yet. There are people on my dad's side that know, and there's a lot of people on my mom's side that I know that know, which has been an uphill climb in its own way. Not that there hasn't been accepting, but it goes back to that thing where I have issue when other people say my identity for me. That is my biggest pet peeve, and every time that someone does it, I've learned that I become more and more pissed about it. Because, like, I understand it. I understand what they're trying to do. They want to make sure that everyone is very aware. They want to make sure that people pronounce, like, they give me the right pronouns. I understand it, and I'm very happy for it, and I'm very grateful for it. Let me have that chance. Because you don't know if the person that you're talking to, I have learned, or I will learn, is not very accepting of those things. And that there has been previous times where that has happened. And it first off, it showed something about those people in my life, but it also causes that kind of friction where I just don't want to deal with that.
On that note, I want to ask, well, two things really quick. The question's actually for you, Elena, anyway. So that'll be good. But the first one for Jane here. Do you think that maybe the most important thing to work on now is getting parents to be more accepting of their children than getting the outside world? Do you think that will eventually infect the rest of the world? Because I think parents and dads who want their son, and mothers, like you said, had a hard time with the issue of her little boy. I think that often spreads to the hatred of and dislike and the kind of name that is created for that gender identity.
I think, honestly, I don't really know. Like, part of me wants to say that it's probably not going to happen, and we're just going to have to wait for this new generation of parents, like with my generation, to start that movement, and then it will move with time, right? But I feel as though that causes an issue because I know so many parents, I know so many grandparents now that have been very accepting, very supportive. Some of these people I was very close with when I was working on all these theater shows that are behind my head. And they didn't know me as trans, but I follow some of them on Facebook and Twitter, and now that I've become more expressive about that, they have supported me. Every film that I've released, every show I've been a part of, they have been there to support in some way. And that is something that means the world to me, because it shows that there is a lot more like-minded people, a lot more people willing to learn than what media and what the news, and especially what social media tries to depict.
We're going to go through some of these more comments in a moment.
Of course.
Elena, I wanted to ask about, do you find yourself speaking for your trans friends out of protection ever? Like saying, hey, they're trans, they're referred to as she before you meet them. And as much as an advocate of you are of accepting people, I'm wondering if that's something you do, and then with your own comment you wanted to say.
Well, my question was actually just about this to Jane. I've done that in the past. I recently had a friend who I used to know as a man, now is a woman. Came out with their new name. They no longer go by their dead name and everything like that. And like, I haven't yet been in a situation where I wanted to, like, not that I've wanted to, that I've introduced them to people they haven't already known. But I've played it back in my head, because they're still very masculine presenting. And I know how much gender, like, affirmation they get when people refer to them as she. The second she told me everything that they've been going through, I feel like I at least tried to be as empathetic as possible.
Okay.
And I've made a very, very conscious decision of always referring to her as she and by their new name. Because that transition can be hard for some people, and I understand that. But I know how hard it could be also for the transgender person to not get that affirmation. So I've been playing it back in my head a lot of like, oh, when I introduce so-and-so, and I'm leaving them anonymous just because like I didn't tell them I was doing a show or anything, So I've like played it back in my head like, oh, I've always thought that it would be more helpful for her if I was just like ahead of, like beforehand, hey, this is so-and-so, she's she uses she, her pronouns. So now I'm asking you, like, would you rather, like, if I brought you out to a group of my friends that have never met you, would you rather me not be like, hey, Jane uses she, her pronouns before you meet them? Like, would you rather do that on your own?
Well, okay. I guess in the sake of just this specific example, I've watched enough of this show, and I've learned much about how you think of things where I don't have that kind of issue. You have my permission to do that, I guess. But on the larger topic of it, just because how I am with that way, and I think this is what you're saying as well, doesn't mean that we're all that way, right?
Right.
For so many people, it's a lot more open. For me, because of my specific situation, especially like say when I went to like bars, like where Keith works at, some of them are going to have people that are much more accepting than others will, right? Or even jobs that I've had in the past, like. Some jobs that you're going to have are going to be more accepting than others. That's why I was very happy with my last job, and I also want to add to the preface here. Like, I don't think that there was any sort of foul play with my last job, but the fact that there was always that discussion interested me. Regardless, and I guess to answer your question, no, you can tell your friends if we were to ever hang out. You have the J seal of approval.
Because I don't want to come across as like telling someone else's story. My whole thing is like always like I just want to make everyone feel the most comfortable. So my whole thought process behind everything, or like even this has actually happened with my non-binary friend at school, where it's like I've gone and talked to them about it and been like, hey, when I introduce you to people, do you want me to tell them beforehand that you use they them pronouns, or should I let you do that? Like, because I want to know if I'm like saving them a hassle so much. You know what I mean? But like, I don't want to come across as like telling someone else's story.
Right.
So I kind of feel like Elena's feeling a little bit of the fear that other people feel when discussing certain things in general too.
Which makes me want to say really quick, Keith. This is why it's always important, if you feel that way, to just ask questions. Because I don't go to all my friends being like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jay. I go by Jane. I'm trans. Don't tell anyone else." I don't.
Right.
Hopefully they will then go, "Okay, why?" But the thing is like, I can suspect the questions that you're going to have, but I'm not going to expect the questions that you're going to give me. Right. So it's one of those situations like back way earlier, at the beginning of all this.
You said that actually, yeah.
When a trans woman and a cis dude get together and they want to fool around, but the whole topic hasn't been brought up, then it comes into the idea of, first off, if you get to that point, usually a trans person, I guess I can't speak for all of them still, but what I would do is I would go, hey, so I'm a trans woman. And if I don't get any questions after that, I'm not going to feel bad if they get offended then to see what the packages that I have. But
I think that is something to bring up because like Lenny was saying, we were talking about it earlier, a lot of people don't understand the full term of trans. It's to them that means I'm a trans woman, you got your stuff chopped. Like, just because they don't understand, not that it's right, not that it doesn't deserve education, but that is some people, that's their only definition of it. So, knowing you're trans, they're accepted of that.
It's because that's what it used to be. That was the definition of it. It has changed.
So, I think in some ways it is important because when you say that to someone, and you were talking about when you're getting intimate, so I'm not talking about like just first meeting, but when you're getting intimate, they're not going to question it because they automatically assume if you are a trans woman, you now have a vagina. And if they come across that surprise, I would feel bad that it would, endanger your safety or somebody else in there because you just don't know.
That's fair. That is very fair. And the thing is, like, you don't know the kind of people that you're going to meet in your life. But I guess for my case, like, Jane.
Go ahead, you can keep talking. I'll put them up before we hit them.
We'll get to this later.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah, that really sidelined me. Anyway, sorry. For me, in those circumstances, like, I usually kind of put everything on the table, right? For me, I go like, hey, just so you know, I'm a trans woman. And to me, like, that is enough. But it has changed. And that's the thing about it. Is that not everyone really has an understanding as to what transness means to them or what they have to do or what they can or what they have done in order to get to where they feel comfortable with the identity that they stand by.
Before, and I know I'm cutting you off a lot on this because I know we're running really long right now. Before we go too far, do you have a few more questions here? We have a few more people that want to say something, and I do want to get to them.
Okay.
But in turn to what you said, do you think there's learning to be done on both sides?
Yes, totally. Here's the thing: if anyone ever feels as though they know it all, never talk to that person again, because it is clear that they know nothing. The importance of wisdom is that you don't know anything unless your name is Keith. Did I say it how you wanted me to say it?
You did it exactly right.
Oh wait, hold on. I should have private messaged that. I'm sorry.
No. You're good. All right. Okay, so I just want to make sure on that, and I think that's something that is lacking in a lot of fights about anything, is somebody thinking they know everything related to it. You can answer this really quick. Are you a fan of AEW? We can do that really quick.
Oh, fuck yeah. AEW's amazing. AEW Revolution, fantastic pay-per-view. That's where I won this belt. Oh my god, that CM Punk MJF match, fucking amazing. It was a dog collar match, which means that each one of them had a dog collar, and it was attached to a chain around their neck. It was very kinky. Anyway, they beat the piss out of each other. They were gashing from the heads. Like, the canvas was covered in blood. You could tell that they hated each other. Really fucking cool.
So no, Thrasher, she does not like AEW. What the hell is wrong with you? That's a totally inappropriate question. What the hell? I was like... All right, Drina would like to continue. Is it possible you'll never see what you feel is perfection, which doesn't exist? There's larger frame females. Everything does exist.
Is it possible? I'm rereading it again. Is it possible you'll never see... Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I see it all the time, you know? Like, I will always have this idealistic version of how I want to be. And I think we all do. In my case, that just adds... Like, there's a little extra bit here of, like, you're also a woman. You gotta start looking like it. You gotta start acting like it. Like, okay, real quick, mini rant. This kind of reminds me of a thing that I have with my mom. So my mom loves gnomes, right? She loves gnomes and she loves llamas, which means anything that has a gnome or a llama on it doesn't matter. She's gonna buy it. That's fine. We all have our thing. That's her thing. Respect to it. She was showing me these dish towels that she bought, and I went honest with her. I was like, I'm happy that you got these towels, but I don't know why we're making a whole conversation about it. And she was like, well, see, like, well, that's what women do. And I go,
that's what
no.
Moms do.
No, Mom.
That's what
you do. That's what you do, and probably my aunt. I know many women in my life, and we never stopped what we were doing to look at the dish towels. But, you know, again, like, I will always strive to fit that kind of perfect way how I look, as I think we all do. But I think it's something strong to understand that you're never going to meet those goals that are higher than anyone else can express.
Right.
So is expressing yourself...
In addition, she says, so is expressing yourself was and is still an issue for you.
It can be. I do wish that I was able to find the time. I think I'm going to do it tomorrow because I have time off. Whew. To get better about makeup instead of asking my friends to help me with it all the time. I've come up with the courage ever since high school to just go buy my own clothes. No one really judges me for it anymore. And there's a lot of times, especially at my old job, that I would come in with makeup and my hair did real nice, and, you know, because that stuff makes me feel the part. Oh, now Keith really wishes that he would come to my old job.
Our chat is insane right now. I was like, it's really insane.
Okay, but yeah, sometimes it is. But you gotta, at least for me, you gotta learn to, like, understand that you are who you are, and what labels that the world gives cannot define who you are as a person.
I agree with that.
Next
Formal
chat.
Foundation here. Well, I must say it's been a long time since I've been in here. Hey, everyone. Formal. It's really
Well, that's
good
not
to
a question.
see you.
Fuck off. Next.
Yeah, okay. Oh. Boy, you're taking over my job now. I don't know how I feel about this. Atlanta Thrashers, of course, asks if likes pizza because there's only two kind of people in the world. Loves pizza, but we're going to get to a little more on the rest of that. What was the taste, the smell, same thing? Damn. Welcome back. You are loved. Now, Drina is back here. Okay. Using Asian area is just an excuse. Phil Donahue, I'm sure, still is his television era. I think that was referring to something we were talking about before, with how old, when we were talking about the age difference and the age gap a little bit on that. Which I agree with, but at the same time, it does make it harder to learn. Has anybody gone and learned, anybody over the age of 40 gone and learned new math yet?
Okay, well, that's the thing. Fuck off. That's math. Okay? Here's the problem.
But
with math.
seriously, I mean, it's something that's
Do you
changed
wanna
and
know-
learned.
do you
Do we
wanna know
go
what the
through the
problem is?
aspect?
Do you want to know what the problem is with
You
math?
learn the old math,
Here's
and then I'll
here's what
learn
my
you.
issue is. Here's
I
what
love
my
new
issue
math.
is with math. The issue with it is because there's so many mathematicians out there that feel as though the way that they can do it is the right way, the faster way, and a more accurate way to do it. So it in itself it's its own science, right? Fuck that. Stop doing that. Like
It's just
okay.
Let us all
I was
learn
in
what we want to.
I was in elementary school, and in elementary school, well, I guess we all did. But when I was in elementary school, they taught me long division, right? And then I go into middle school, and I start writing longhand my long division, and my teacher goes, "What the fuck are you doing? You can't do that. Why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? I got the answer, right? Why does it matter how I got there? Fuck math. Go on."
well, it just sounds like
Sorry, I
somebody to
took
me
that
that
all
doesn't
over.
want to learn something new, huh? I was like,
I don't
I'm
need
glad
to. I
that now
understand
your
math.
mic's working.
yeah, I
I'm
am
so happy
too.
that now that your mic's working, we get all the dramatics of it too. The zoom
Thrasher's-
in. Great.
Thrasher says, so Jane, if your friends introduce you as Jane, do you feel that's a baseline of telling others your identity since it's mostly a female name?
Well, I'm glad that that was asked as well because I haven't come to terms by telling people that my name is Jane until this year. Like I said earlier, but it probably wasn't heard very well. So everyone, my friends, my colleagues, they all know me as J, just the letter. And because of that is because my dead name started with the letter J, and Jane starts with the letter J. So for me, it was like, oh, a transition that I can help for those around me. A transition to move out of high school into college, a whole new like life. You know what I mean? Because high school is its own little weird bubble, right?
It's gross. Yeah.
It is. It is gross. College, not much better. Gross in its own ways.
Yeah.
In addition to that, because I can see that being difficult for your friends by the name alone, assumptions are hard not to be
So-
made, which is a battle that we talked about a little bit earlier, too.
Right. But I will say, now that everyone has known me as Jay for a long time, and I don't think anyone really knows me as my dead name anymore unless they've had to look at my photo ID at a bar or a restaurant or whatever, at a store, that I'm at that point where I can start doing that, and I've become more comfortable with people like doing that and knowing that I am trans. But it's so much easier to go, this is my friend Jane, than going, hey, that's my buddy Jay. She's trans. Make sure you get the pronouns right. It makes it so much more like of a challenge, right? But it was a great question.
Fair. By the way, Formal, if I didn't say so, very, very glad to have you back. It has been a while. You've been great on here. I disagree slightly with that point. Your shoulder voice. Never mind. It wasn't good to have back. Don't disagree with me. Just kidding. Parents are a tiny amount. This is when I said that you think parents need to be educated more. You think that's a stepping stone. Parents are a tiny amount of people who should be just accepting and forward thinking, which I agree they're a small amount. If everyone just learned to have compassion for everyone, then parents would feel these topics were so taboo to them. That would mean people wouldn't need to learn to be accepting. Everyone else just would be. And I do think that there's kind of a point with the parents on there, too, because sometimes one of the biggest battles, I don't know about Jane's situation here, but maybe her father or something wouldn't be one to talk to their friends about it because he's already disagreeing with it. You know, and if you get the parents to be accepting, they will also be in the court defending you. They will also be a better voice with you and for you. So that's why I think parents are definitely a key aspect. But you're definitely right about it's a tiny amount of people. But I think it's a key aspect because I think if your family accepts, especially your immediate family, that spreads better yet. Instead of saying, I don't want to talk about it, I don't discuss it, I don't get it, I don't understand it, you know, which I'm sure Jane's parents probably, or dad has probably done at some point, if it's ever been brought up to him. I don't know if it has. And he continued going on to point out in advance he's a supporter. I think you're a he. We talked to you before. I just feel there's a stigma where people feel that they should have to learn something in order for things to work. In fact, it's much simpler than just accepting things people want to be and do, which I think we've established that on a few times tonight, that is the most important, to accept what people want to be and just accept it. But again, people often do have certain kind of questions, and the fear of asking it is why we have so much hate around topics like this. Anything you want to comment on those two before I get to Drina? No?
Are you
Okay.
asking me or everyone?
And everybody
Okay,
gets a
good.
chance when I say it. All right. Drina says, "Is that different from your name change after married? Is it that different from your name change after marriage?" And I say that because it seems to be so far the name. Don't explain before the introduction. Like getting used to the name, I think she's referring to, or having to deal with it and adjust to it. Okay.
I was going to comment on this earlier.
Go ahead.
I haven't even legally. So, for those of you who don't know, I got married almost 2 months ago. But like every single human in my family has already started calling me Elena Funky. That's like my new name. Still haven't legally changed it. Like, have kind of socially been starting to go by Funky, but maiden name's Ryan. And like all of my family has already been like, "Oh, Elena Funky, Mrs. Funky." But I get it, it's fun, I'm newly married. But it makes me like, and again, I get so heated about shit, but it makes me mad that it's so easy for these same people to just immediately be like, "Oh, you're Elena Funky now." But if I were to, and I'm referring to my family because, like I said earlier, my dad, very traditional Irish Catholic family. If I were to tell all of those family members that I am now Alan instead of Elena, they would all have a huge problem. "Well, I'm not just going to start calling you by a new name." It's like, no, you will, because I just married a man, and now that's fine with you.
I think the name's a little easier to adjust to. I have always had a problem. I've even said here on different shows for different topics entirely that even nicknames I have a hard time with. Like, I'll grow up with somebody, I'll know their name forever, somebody gives them a nickname, everybody starts calling them, and I still refer to them as the original name I knew them. Mm-hmm. And I have a hard time with that, actually. I have a friend who goes by Ira. He was Jay when I was growing up, he's Jay today. I can't call him anything else besides that. And Nikki, you know who I'm talking about on there. You're so quiet because her mic's muted. She's got to unmute it to talk. You can say something, Try it.
I want to hear from you.
I know, I just don't want to ruin the show with noise.
No, when you're talking, there's no noise. It's when you're... Actually, hold on.
There's no noise
we might
anymore.
be good. The noise might be gone.
I've been sitting here silent for 2 hours. Did you know
Oh my
how hard
god.
that was?
I sat here screaming into a Mac microphone for I understand it, honey.
That was so hard.
We're getting through it together.
It was
Yes,
the
wait.
quietest
Real quick,
you've ever been
real
on one of
quick.
these shows.
Now
I'm
that
telling you.
now that everything has fixed, a while ago, well over an hour ago, you said that you had a question. What happened to Naughty? Why is it just Nikki now? What happened?
Because my children saw it.
Oh, that's what it was. That was probably the hi mom thing, huh?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, what do you still remember that question that you had?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was probably answered. This chat is off the chain tonight.
I know it is. You've got, first of all, Jane, you've become part of one of the longest shows and the longest chats we've ever had,
it's
and you
official.
might just hit the longest show,
Yeah.
which is good because people are really engaged and they want to know this. Adrina says, let them meet the person and tell their story, which we do agree with 100%, that it should be their choice. There's many forms, so what's the new definition? I don't know which comment she's referring to on that one. Probably something, because we're backlogged here, so I'm trying to get through it. And by the way, this isn't true. Trans, they're now wishing for a dick. I think we're going back to the mirror thing. I think she's going back to the mirror and who you see in there. I think that's part of it, what we're talking about on here.
Okay.
That the dick doesn't matter. And then that also explains the many forms. So what's the new definition of being a woman? Okay. I agree. And I think we actually answered that as she was saying it. Brandon says, stop showing my political shit when it's not relevant to the current convo. I don't care if it doesn't make it to the screen. Let's talk about that, Brandon.
Yeah, I think...
Note to self, your political shit was part of the convo, by the way, Brandon. You were talking about legislation relating to trans and stuff, so yeah, it's kind of part of the conversation. Get with the game. Thrasher says, note to self, never talk to my third ex-wife again. She knows everything.
What does that mean?
We were talking about nobody knows everything. If you think you know somebody who knows everything, stop talking to them unless their name is Keith.
He's
Drina
so good at
says,
this. He should host this more often.
talk to everyone. Even the clueless have knowledge. Remember that, which is very, very true. You
Amen.
can't assume that somebody doesn't know something.
Amen.
Thrasher says, my bad, he's not going to bring up AEW
No,
again.
bring
I
up
guess it's not
AEW
for
again.
everybody.
AEW is fucking awesome. Chris Jericho looks amazing now, by the way.
And I look like Chris Jericho. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I was like, Be right back looking up gnomes riding llamas. Holy shit, it's real. I found a llama with 3 gnomes riding it. 3.
Send it to Jane's mom.
Okay, we'll get through some of these
Please,
comments
send
relatively
it. I will
quickly
show
now.
my mom. That's 4 too many?
It's 4. 3, it's not an alpaca. Okay, we're getting through this really quick. Okay. Thrasher says, I'm 42 and have a 12-year-old. COVID saved my son's future. Him doing online school allowed me to teach him real math. That's awesome. On there, we're talking about the real math. Math is math. Well, there was just the point that because somebody has a new way of doing things, do we all suddenly go up and learn how to do it just because we know it's out there?
Right.
I mean, technically, it'd help us with our kids. It'd help them understand it. We're like, fuck, I don't know this new math. Move on. And math is just Hatam backwards. Well done.
It is.
Correct.
Math is. You're
Do you know
confusing
race
me
cars
right
race
now.
car backwards too?
Oh god.
I
To
did
ham
know
It's a
seed.
that.
palindrome. Okay, he's writing backwards now. We're gonna move on.
Hold
I
on.
hate
Oh,
English. All right.
I had it. I could read it though.
Oh, it's math be will always and is math. You got your B and your will backwards. Math be will. All right. I hate English. I hate cabbage. So we're getting through these relatively quickly. We got a few questions coming up.
Okay.
Don't learn new English. We are now family. We've made friends on here. It's what we do. Broccoli is weird as well as a little substitute for toy railway. Oh my god. Hey, I got female buddies. Drina's back. All right, let's
Okay,
have
good.
a real
Something
question.
good. Something
All
good.
right. Why haven't you changed your name legally? That is what's confusing for me. Hopefully that isn't offensive.
No, it's not offensive. Okay, first off, I did that big sigh. It's not offensive. It's just fucking irritating. Not the question.
lot of work.
Just changing. It is so much
Oh.
work. So one of the things I was able to research for the Gender and Sexuality Center at OU was I got to make a pamphlet describing the process of what it is to change your name legally. And I was like, oh, this is great. I will be able to learn with this because I don't know and I want to do it. And oh my god, it's like damn near close to like 2 or 3 years before you're finally able to get it through the door, and you have to get it appealed, and you have to put it in the newspaper. Who the fuck reads the newspaper? I have to get in touch with it. It's a process that doesn't need to be so long, but it's done so because the names are such a big deal. And I don't mean that in the sakes of just like an identity thing for like LGBT. I mean it just as an identity altogether, right? Your social security number has your original name. I would have to do that all over again. I didn't even do it the first time. I was born and it was enough.
Do you
to the
really
world.
have to? Do you think it's something you really have to do, like change your social security name? And
Yeah.
can't you just...
Yeah, you do.
You do.
You do.
You
Your
do.
name
basically-
was legally changed.
No,
you
that's what I'm
basically-
talking. Well, that's what I'm referring to. I mean, or do you? Could you go through life realizing it's that you're just
Like
accepting
just
of being a different
socially
name?
being Jane,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
legally being Jay.
Is that important? Is what I'm asking to you personally.
Yes and no. Like, I've learned that it doesn't matter too much because everyone that knows me knows how I want to go by anyway. And even for places that don't, like this one job that I was training at today, which, oh my god, that was its own headache, was they were referring to me by my dead name, and I was like, yeah, but, you know, my friends just call me Jay. So you can just call me Jay. It makes it even easier, which works because someone called me Joe today, and that really threw me off. So I guess not, but it would also kind of be like nice, but also like, oh, I'm having too many headaches as is, so maybe I should be fine.
I'm missing some of this. I should really get a private chat for these two. We got the option of being murdered, cabbage, or murdered by people would choose. That's totally
What the
different.
fuck?
Formal comes up with some interesting questions. I love them. They're awesome. Drina says, this is a good question. Are you absolutely sure this is who you are? Because if looking into the mirror is what makes you uncomfortable, you need to stay in that mirror until you accept you for who you are, and that's her opinion. Do you have anything to comment on that?
I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I talked about it a little bit ago now. But yeah, that's something that I've tried to become a lot better with and a lot stronger with by looking through the mirror and learning to accept it. Right. So for me, on top of just learning that I was trans, like discovering that, I've always just had like bad problems of how I've looked. You know, I have a lot of my own like issues with like my body. Besides that, and becoming.
Can I ask on that? Do you think those issues in any way impacted your thoughts to become trans?
Uh,
Just not being happy with your body in general, but not the female aspects. Do you think that any of that was an impact?
no, but my brain tries to find it as an obstacle now. It tries to create that obstacle, and it in a weird way, it's kind of like as a teenager, young adult, I'm going through the same kind of argument that was always kind of made about the Barbie, right, or modeling in a magazine. Like I'm going through that stuff now, and I've been going through this stuff at an earlier time, and so whenever I see people comment about it with their children, it's something where it's like I can understand that, and it really sucks that I can understand that because it sucks, right? Which is what made me so happy to see like all these new different types of Barbies that are out there right now. Which I don't know. I mean, there people here that have kids. You've probably been down the aisle and you've seen all the different Barbies, and it's nice. It is nice, and in some ways, it does upset me because I know that the company's probably doing that more for marketing than true acceptance. But fuck it, whatever.
Because representation
it
matters.
gets it out there. It does. It does, and it doesn't like for that specific case. Fine, if it's not the trueness to what it is, fine. But those who are consumers of it can see it that way.
I mean, technically, haven't Ken and Barbie always been kind of like trans? I mean, I took the clothes off both of them.
No,
Trans has nothing
I
to
know
do
you
with
do, Lenny. I'm sorry. I know it's a longer show. I appreciate you
No,
being
I
here,
just-
Lenny.
I've got to get Luke situated.
You-
He's got
I know.
school in the morning.
It's
But
good
I just
having you
I
on
didn't
here,
want
Lenny.
to just leave, so I just wanted.
Good
to
having
tell
you, Lenny.
bye
This is a
and-
longer show than we usually have,
No,
but like I said,
I'm
it's very
really
good,
happy that I
and
could be
everything
part
you're
of this
saying
one,
is so much
so-
appreciated, Jane.
Yeah.
I hope I get to hear from you. I hope to be invited to one of these again or to meet
Heck
in person
yeah.
because you
Yeah.
guys have all.
Oh,
been
you're invited
amazing.
to like all of them.
yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
your voice is meant for this.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Um,
but I do have to say goodbye because I
Yeah.
got
Alright.
him ready.
Have a
Bye,
great
Lenny.
Lenny, it was
Take
so
care.
good seeing
Bye,
you,
Lenny.
Lenny.
See everybody again
Bye.
another time.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right. Brandon says, what can those of us that view ourselves as allies do to help from your point of view? This is a great question, Brandon. From your point of view, what would be the most impactful?
The biggest thing for an ally to do is learn to shut up and listen. Because here's the thing. Everyone who says that they're accepting of the LGBT culture, maybe this is my hot take of the evening, maybe I'll get the chat to turn on me, doesn't make you an ally. It just means that you understand, like, you know that you should be thinking that way, but you don't have a reason as to why you should think that way. You're more of a sheep than an ally. I'm sorry, but you
Yeah.
are. You are.
I disagree with that. The other three on the panel, you're going to make an enemy of me right now. I disagree with that because isn't there something to be said? Just you're a fucking human being, whether I understand it or not. I want you to be able to live life as a human being like everybody else and be respected like everybody else and not have this judged against you. Is that not enough reason to be an ally for your cause?
Allow me to continue. Because I've known many people who believe that way, and I'm not saying that you're not an ally, Keith.
I'm not talking about me. I'm just talking about in general.
Well, for me, what I've learned as an ally and what I've been able to understand is I've had a lot of people in my life that are like, yeah, you are who you are, and that's great. That is great. That means that you are in support. That does. So I guess in its own pseudo way, yes, that's an ally. But to me, what an ally is something like how this whole discussion has been. It has been people who are not acting like they know it all, who are not just standing in the idea of, well, I accept it, so... there's more to it. There's education, like you can say that like you understand things like and not to get into all these other topics because we're just on this right now, but like things like Black Lives Matter or
I was going to say
like,
that.
or like even say like to get even more political about it, like think about right now with things right now between Russia and Ukraine, like it is good for those to be like, yes, we stand with Ukraine. But my God, I'm sure there's so many people out there that don't really know what's going on, that don't really know what it's based on, and don't really know how the media is kind of fucking it up. You know what? The other night, no, we're not going to get into that. That's
No,
a
let's
whole
not
other
do
topic.
no politics.
But you get the point
We
that
agree
I'm
with
saying.
that, but it's
For
one
me,
thing we do.
For me, what makes an ally is when they not only support you, but they also are not afraid of being like, I don't understand what it fully means. I want to learn, and I think that's important. You can't be an ally with something without education, I think.
True.
Because then it's just blind.
But is it the education you want them to have, or the education that human beings are human beings with emotion and human rights? Because that is an education in itself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be about trans. It doesn't have to be about gay. It doesn't have to be about any of that. Just knowing as a human being you deserve that. Pardon me, should make someone an ally. And that you hit the Black Lives Matter, and I want to point to that too. Just because I don't know every single thing a black person goes through does not make me not an ally of an enemy of Black Lives Matter. I still respect them as human beings with human rights and deserve to be treated like everybody else, or women in general, as we've had the topic about sexism before. There is something to be said to have an ally who will stick up for you and stand up for you without knowing the whole story because they believe you have a basic human right.
That's fair.
Okay, well, that's not... Okay.
Wow.
Can I say something?
She's been
Wait.
Uh-oh, here we go, Elena.
So, totally agree with you, Jane. One of the things that I always have to like check myself on is that like, yes, I have like found out things about trans people by looking on the internet. I don't want to call it research because it's not research, but by exploring the internet and talking to trans people. But like, I get what you're saying, whereas like sometimes I feel like I know that I speak for people sometimes. I don't mean to speak for people. I think what I should be saying more often is that I speak for political correctness.
That's fair.
Because I'm not trying to speak for all trans people. I'm not a trans people. You are a trans person, and you're not trying to speak for all trans people. Like, you know what I mean?
As an example, on our previous 2 Sundays ago when we had this show, we actually delved into the trans portion quite a bit, and it was kind of a segue to this show. In a way, one of the things Elena was doing was, I consider Elena a huge ally of LGBT rights and trans community and all that. I do. But Elena doesn't know everything, too. I wanted to get an opinion from people who are actually trans. But to dismiss not being fully educated as her not being an ally would be ridiculous, because I totally think she is. And I don't think you should turn allies away for not being fully educated in your cause, more than just being educated in the fact that you deserve to be treated like everybody else.
I guess let me put it in an example. Let's
Giving you a foundation. I'm giving foundation.
Yeah.
So
for me, I think the reason why I look at it that way kind of even goes back to that whole, like, when people speak for what my identity is without me even being involved. Because especially because of a lot of those people, I've told them, don't do that. Just don't do that. I know your heart's in the right place, and it's very caring, but it's in the same. I think it's in the same type of way of how you guys make the argument of does that person deserve to know before you have sex or whatever, that you like what's going on down there. It's this idea of informing, right, as opposed to assuming. And I think like you can be in support, but when you base your things off assumptions, you can cause a lot more harm than you do good. So that's why I think it's good to really just stop what you're thinking, stop what you're saying, and just listen. Because I think if you stand by the LGBT community, but you don't know anyone that is LGBT, that is fine. I'm not saying that you do not pass the test, but in my eyes, I don't think that really makes you an ally, because
I think there's harm in dismissing people like that believe they are fighting for your cause. And I do think that telling them, and I'm not saying you're wrong in doing so, because your point of why you're doing that is very valid, that you need to understand, but it's the same thing, and I'm going to go to the Black Lives Matter thing. The people say, you don't know, you don't understand, you haven't been through this all, but I'm in your corner, and people get attacked sometimes because they don't understand. Research is important, and knowing things is important, but on every topic you support, sometimes it's impossible, especially in America where our lives become so hectic and hellish. You can say we can go to the library and read a book. Some of us don't have time to, read a recipe for dinner. It's really hard to get all that in sometimes, but to know that they're supporting. I think you can harm people by saying, if you don't know the entire story, you're not an ally. You're just somebody in the background who thinks it's okay.
Well, I guess that also just depends on what we just think is the basis of an ally and those who are a supporter. Like, I'm not saying that those who are like, I don't understand it, but I'm in your corner, are therefore then not needed, supported, or cared for. But if it's someone in my life who's clear that like they care, but they're not going to seek out like how they can actually like help and listen and ask that from people that are actually a part of the community. I don't know. I don't feel as though it makes the same type of impact.
I get your point. I actually don't fully agree with the point, but I do get your point, and I do
And I
understand
get yours
it.
as well.
Yeah, and I do think there is something, for people who just want to help. Sometimes they don't have the time, but they're going to stand up. Maybe their only time is going to be to go to a march, depending on what the topic is, or go to an event that stands up for, and it's just their way of showing that they're on your side. Versus, are you educated enough to be on my side?
Well,
And I think that's a little bit of a problem.
well, I think like when you put on the idea of a march, those who usually, not all, but usually go to a march, it's because they know that they can stand with this. And usually when you're able to when you go to those type of things, it's something that you find a clear like understanding and care for. And I think maybe my way of interpreting how you're saying it, or maybe even the way how I'm saying it,
I was
is
going to
coming
say,
off in a different way.
it's just
I
a
think-
definition thing. We're more arguing
I think
on
we're
there.
on the same page, just
Yeah.
a different way of how we're defining it.
But sometimes and not to continue this because I don't really want to continue it much longer on the ally thing. It's sometimes I think it can be construed wrong with people.
That's
Like you
fair.
said, we're kind of arguing the definition, even though we have the same goals, and that's something that can hurt people and say, "Well, I'm never going to be good." That's one thing that happened with the Black Lives Matter movement is people who cared about it, that were not part of, or that were not black or anything like that, felt that they were being attacked because they didn't understand instead of trying to support a cause they fully believed in. Even without fully understanding. So sometimes that's it. Going to formal foundation, Atlantic Thresher, does that mean we're not good or interesting? You are more than good and interesting right now. We're so backlogged. I mean, I'm going to have to end the show soon, but we're definitely backlogged, so I'm trying to get through everything in the queue, as you say. Atlanta Thrasher's marriage comes with a free name change. I highly recommend doing the paperwork instead, though. Very true. I thought you said Joan. I don't know which one that one is. Crime comes with a free nickname. Only problems, please choose what it is. Also true. Devil's Cabbage. I don't know. It's getting weird. All right. Okay. Here's my trippy question for Jane. If you could go back and change one part of your family history, which would lead you to having a more accepting transition, what would it be? Formal is known for doing questions like this, so if you got to think deeply, it's very possible.
So, what would I go back and change about my family history? I don't know if I would. I don't think I would change anything. And I think here's my basis with it. My dad can sometimes be a real jerk-off. And it makes it very hard to want to be around him. My mom and I fight constantly. But, in the end of the day, I know that they will love me in a way that no one else really will. That kind of... And I'm very grateful for that. Even though my dad doesn't know. And part of me knows that he would still love me regardless, but I don't want to know what that would do to him. And part of me kind of feels like, oh, that's in its own kind of shitty, but it's just how it is. For my dad's side of the family, my aunt knows, and her family knows, and they're very accepting of it. My mom's side, everyone in my immediate family that I care about, they know. At least most of them do. Maybe a couple of them don't, but maybe because I haven't gone around to bring it up. My trans really hasn't become a big topic of discussion after being it for so long.
It is now.
Or identifying it for so long. But I think of the history that I know about my grandfather and my great-grandfather and the family that they were able to create and the legacy that they've left. I might change my first name, but I'm a Hayward through and through. I am a Sheridan through and through, which are my parents' last names. Like I that is my legacy, and that to me just personally means the world to me. That's a topic for a different day, I guess. But that's something I'm very grateful for, and I think if I were to change anything, I feel like something would be missing as to what makes them who they are, and I know that deep down my family wouldn't want to do anything to change me.
Love
not
that.
to bring up a lot of the topic, I don't want to go into the answer to this topic, but one thing you did is I think that sometimes people have to look at is when you said, I don't want to tell my dad because I don't know his reaction, or I don't know based on the history, I'm assuming he's going to be this way. He could be angry, so I don't want to bring it up to him whatsoever. And that's something that I think others should look at too, even the trans people, that's how others feel when approaching them with questions. Maybe not to the extreme of being family necessarily, but it does come down to the point of, I think I know how they'll react. It's not worth trying. I don't want to read. I don't want to offend anybody. Nikki,
does.
you look like you're going to say something. Just checking.
No, I'm just listening.
Do you think there's a single point that would make your family more accepting? Or do you personally feel it's all parents should grasp the concept of growth?
Well, I guess it also
You're the
depends on
star
what you
tonight, Jane.
think. I guess so. I guess it really also depends on what your what your definition of growth is. Is that in the type of way how like I'm describing it, of having that knowledge there? Is it in the way of how like Keith is describing that, of like even if I don't fully understand it, I'm in your corner? Like, is it something even deeper than that? I think in the end of the day, if you were to become a parent, this is just my take on it, being a 22-year-old loser trying to make movies, never had
Not a
kids.
loser.
Don't say
Well,
that.
we're all losers in our own ways.
No,
but
we're
we
not.
Win.
No, no negative
disagree.
affirmations.
The point I'm trying to make is
Make it
that-
better.
The point I'm trying to make is, even though I've not been through the experience of what it is to be a parent, what I've learned as a person is always understanding the idea of context and perspective. Those are the things that have gotten me to where I am in my life. And I think there comes a time when we get older, and I've seen this through a lot of friends that I have, not all of them, but a lot of them that make it to the 30s and 40s, and they become very stuck in their ways. And
Keep going.
more power to them. That means that they have opinions and they understand them in their own way. But I think something that's really lost upon people of all ages is not wanting to see what it's like to be in another person's shoes. And we'll say it, but there's so many few people that will actually do it.
Yeah.
It's so true, and it applies to so many, not just this topic either.
We got Nikki. Nikki, you stopped.
What?
I was so happy you were interjecting. You didn't, because Audrina here says, panel's so quiet. Speak, ladies.
Oh.
You have to be more than beautiful on the panel.
It
I should be
really does
offended
not
by
have to
that.
be just me.
Because they said speak ladies. There's 3 ladies on the panel and 1 guy, so I'm apparently taking up everything, and I apologize. I was like,
I just want Drina, because I know you joined late. I ranted for a very long time, so maybe just watch it back.
oh yeah, she definitely did.
Yeah, and also I just want to say
There's a
if it
lot of
seems as
Jane
though-
and an obnoxious amount of me.
if it feels like if someone has something, please. I really don't want this to just be the Jane show.
The thing is actually you're bringing up so many good points. People are really engaging. I mean, look at how our chat's blowing up on this. Aside from the Foundation
We're
Thrasher
learning
connection,
a lot.
like this is what we do it for, is to give you that voice. Nikki, I don't hear a thing you're saying because you're muted.
Who mute? Did you mute me?
No, you couldn't. If I did, you couldn't have unmuted yourself.
I was just saying, this is the most interaction I've ever seen.
Yeah,
this is kind of
I
nuts.
took my sabbatical.
Yeah.
But
Shouldn't acceptance and shutting up and listening to people an issue with everything, depression, race, and sexism? No, because going back to Jane's point, she was right, I believe, when she said that there is something to be educated about the situation more than just acceptance. I do believe you need to learn, maybe not delve as deep as I think some people want you to, but a little bit learning about the cause and just dealing with it, because that leads to questions you never get answered. That leads to things down there, and that's actually what builds up and leads to the hate we see, is questions don't get answered. People don't know.
well,
Personal
too,
opinion.
if you're an ally on a subject, even if you're not affected by it, directly, if you are an ally on a subject, you should know something of that subject to be following that subject.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're leading into something blind. You could be like for something really shitty.
Right,
If
but
you
I mean,
don't know.
the depth of education is important too. I mean, if somebody said save the Bikamus out of Africa, I'm not going to join the Bikamu cause because I don't know what the fuck a Bikamu is.
And
You know,
Exactly.
but I
Yeah.
don't know the history of a Bikamu once I learn about it just in general what it is, to say they're worth saving.
Sure.
And I think that one of the things that people make mistakes in, and I think the Black Lives Matter group did it, and I think some of the some women have done it with their sexism cases or equality cases, a better way to say it, and gay and trans have all made it, is don't dismiss your allies. Take what you can get, because you'll be much stronger in the numbers you can have if you don't dismiss certain people from being one of them.
Yeah, but unfortunately, going back to, which, Jane, by the way, your analogies are, I love them. But going back to the bad apple analogy, when somebody is not, educated on a topic and you go intermingling them, that's where some bad apples get in to the bushel, and one bad apple can turn the whole bunch disgusting. And with the hate that's in this world, it really should come down to, like, we should all be allies. Unfortunately,
I don't know. I open a bag of apples and I see a bad apple. I throw it out, and then I feed the rest of the apples to the family. Not me, because there was a bad apple
sometimes
there.
the bad apples are at the bottom, and you don't see them. They blend in, and then they make the rest all nasty.
Guys, we're getting
be
really
stronger in numbers. Be stronger in numbers. Be stronger in numbers.
Jane,
Yes.
I think you should just shut up and be an ally to Ukraine at this point.
That's not what we're talking about.
It's a joke here.
Oh, he backed away slowly. Or, no, just Thrasher did. All right. Formal says, I clearly labeled that as a joke. It's literally in brackets. Okay.
This is.
Why do you think I backed away? Come on,
you know what it is? You want to know why there's so many people? It's because the champ is here. It's because the fuckwad.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
By the way, if anybody was looking at the champ, there is a link to that llama and gnome, the 3 gnomes on the llama.
Is there?
There is one in the chat, yeah. So.
Okay, good.
Brandon says
Mother's
that's where
Day is
he's
coming
coming
up.
from. I want people to know that Elena and I are here to support, but I honestly don't know what actions we can do to really help. And sometimes that comes, it's not something you necessarily have the time to look up, as was suggested before, even though you can, depending on your schedule and what you do. It does come to the point of, Jane, we need people like you to help us. We need those voices. We need people to say, this is what you could really do to help.
And the thing is that if you think what I'm saying is really good, for the past good number of years now, and a lot of it is due to the impact of the Black Lives Matter the past, back in 2020, is that there have been a lot of voices, a lot of trans voices, some that were very needed, but get pushed down a lot. And I need to say this right now, is like there are so many black people, so many black trans women, so many like black gay people, and they get pushed down and they get pushed down, right? And it was so great and amazing to see speeches from those people in the community these past couple of years, and they've always been around. They have always been around, but seeing it in stuff like on the news and in social media is such a great thing. If you think what I've been saying is great, or helpful, like look for all these as well, if you're interested. Because there is tons of people that have that kind of voice and that kind of education. I'm just lucky because, I was able to grow up in a time where those voices were there, right? And it's going to be harder when you're not surrounded by that.
I think that's... Oh, sorry, I was going to agree. I was going to say that's what started a lot of this conversation when we were talking about the gap. You and both Elena grew up when these voices were there. They're present. They're already being heard.
And I'm very lucky about that.
Me too.
Yeah. Where I know in my household, it was very much the opposite. Very much, if you were different from the norm, well, man, I heard some words of like leaving church and my mom calling a black person, the nasty names. Like, that's at a young age. I was like, wow.
They say your childhood growing up, your family and everything directly directly impacts who you become as an adult. And that's why it's so hard for a lot of people to change this, whereas you two both grew up in a more accepting world than we ever did. Now, I was, and anybody who does know me from the past, I was very much a voice of be who you are when I was growing up, because I didn't care, but literally most people around me were not. And I had to deal with that too, and it's really hard to learn. We can. Elena's right, we can. But one of the problems we come from, and I'm going to hit to Brandon's comment really quick, is when we approach somebody, and this is nothing against you right now, Jane, and we say, what can we do to help? you say go somewhere else.
Well, okay.
Like you're somebody we're comfortable with to say what can we do, and you're saying go somewhere else.
Well, what I'm saying is, like how I've been saying from the beginning, if what I've been saying has been giving some help, and you're looking for more people like me, I'm just one person. I can't speak for them.
Right.
And
but the question was originally personally. Somebody else asked us before personally. What do you think would be impactful?
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay. What I think people can do. Whew, that's a hard one. That's a hard one.
It's hard to want change when you don't know the steps that you wanted to take.
Exactly. Well, I guess I've never been asked that on the spot like this before, you know. So I guess one thing that I think that helps is if you know people in your life, you know, that are having these kind of like issues, maybe not even, you know, like transness, but something in the LGBT community, and you have those people. I know that at least the friends that I have, something that really helps us is when they ask it. Like, honestly, this has kind of been in its own way very cathartic, because a lot of questions that I'm being asked here are kind of like the first time I've ever been asked them. And it means the world to me because it's being asked in such a way that shows that there's a lot of meaning to it. Even though I know I've talked a lot during this episode, it means the world to me because, you know, sometimes all that people really need is to be there to listen. And I think that's why I think being an ally means that sometimes you don't speak and just listen and ask, and it means the world to everyone. I've learned that. I have to give that up to a lot of people in my life recently that have taught me that, because it's helped me a lot.
Well, there's a little contradiction in don't speak but listen and ask. Somebody's going to be speaking there. Somebody's asking or somebody's listening to someone else talking. So there's a little speaking got to be going on. To have Thrasher's leaving us, he said he's got to bounce. Ladies and Chris Jericho, great to meet you, Jane. And FY, I love people who hate pizza too. Just testing.
You've been awesome.
Sorry, the comment was late. I had to pause the stream to text my dad. Sorry, I missed that. I thought you were going to say something else. I wouldn't have put it up there. Formal says growth is in a child's constantly growing, and as a parent myself of a child mid-transitioning, you would always push forward with your child. Doesn't matter what they are, what choice they make, you just support regardless of the situation. And I believe with your child, no matter what they choose, unless they're Charles Manson, that, supporting your child is very important in any decision they make, because that's what every parent wants. They want their child to be happy. Mm-hmm. And Formal, finally, that's his final comment. And oh my God, we caught up with the chat. So a few quick points, and we're going to be about done here. The two things I wanted to bring up very briefly, so we got to keep this short, within 5 minutes on each one, so we can end this show really quick. Okay. Wanted to bring it up earlier, but one thing we talk about pronouns. How important are they?
Pronouns, very important. If you go around and you're mispronouncing someone, or misinforming on their pronouns or saying the wrong pronouns, it can affect someone greatly. I'm very lucky that I'm around people I'm very lucky just who I am, because Keith knows I'm a very patient person about it, where sometimes it can be a process, especially for someone like me wearing tie-dye shirts and denim jeans all the time. But it is very important. See what I'm saying?
And I'm a
it's
cis
very
woman.
important.
Let's be fair here. With this, Jane, no offense. Sometimes seeing people with facial hair or still looking like a guy in a lot of ways. Elena, you could wear jeans and a shirt, and I can easily, without question, tell that you're a woman. Now you could be a trans woman. I could be wrong. You could want to go as a guy, but like I said, I'm going to look at you, and that's going to be the natural instinct, which is where pronouns get confusing with people, because a lot of us do react on visual instinct.
This is true. However, they're still important, and I will die on that hill.
No, I think they're very important, but I think my only question is the learning period. I asked you something. I'm going to ask you again, because I've already talked to you about this prior. How long did it take you to be comfortable and used to referring to yourself as a woman?
Well, yeah, so that was also why I kind of went with the middle option of just being Jay, because it was a transitional point for them. It was, in a lot of ways, a transitional point for me, because I had to reteach myself something that was pushed into my head at the time for 16 years. Mm-hmm. And going through that process, at least for my head, it's going to be easier, because, when I wake up and go to bed, I'm still going to bed with this person every night. But it's a process, and that's the thing, and I think that's important for everyone to understand, is that it's a process for everyone, including the person that is going through that process.
Talking to Elena, because Elena is one who pushes that you should adjust quicker, and she does very well. I've noticed that with anybody she knows. You adjust your pronouns great with a lot of people. You're very good at that, and I appreciate that. Do you think that it's sometimes harsh to get down on people for not being able to pick it up right away? Even myself, which I do, and she's been very good with me, and you have too as well, Jane.
I think it's subjective. So, like for example, Keith, if I knew that you were giving me the wrong pronouns because you were trying to be vindictive to me, then yeah,
Different.
yeah. So I think it's just subjective with the situation. Like when people usually accidentally say my pronouns wrong, usually they use like they correct themselves, or sometimes once in a while I'll be like, hey, that's very rare when I do that.
Okay, well, no, that's fair. I see a lot of people, and this is not actually directed towards Elena, because Elena, you're also very forgiving on a lot of it too, because you do see the difference in being refusing to use the proper pronouns, which is
Right.
an issue, and I get that. But I think a lot of people should know it's not easy, and I think a lot of trans people, once they transition or full, they give people less and less time to make those errors, forgetting that it took themselves a long time to get it right.
And I
Because they were so
totally
used to it.
understand that. And I'm not speaking strictly to you right
I
now,
know.
but I think that a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just hard," and they use that as an excuse. Like, I don't think that a lot of people are actually trying. Like Keith, I think that you're trying. I don't think that a lot of people are trying. I think
How
they
hard
just
was it
keep
not to say a
misgendering
name
you.
in there? I was like, I think you're thinking of somebody particular. I was like,
No, and I'm really not. And I know
I know,
that you
okay.
and I are thinking of the same person right now, but like generally, in a lot of situations, I think that a lot of people just aren't fucking trying. And that's why I
That's
always
fair.
go back to the person I go to school with who's non-binary and who met every human in the building there all together. They refer to themselves as, like, their name is Spencer. I shouldn't say refer to themselves. Their name's Spencer. They're non-binary, and they were born a woman.
Right.
And first day of class, we were all online, and like our school is not as progressive as I think a lot of schools should be. And when we were all online, all of our names that popped up are just like our legal names. So their legal name popped up, which is their dead name. But first day of class, our teacher was like, by the way, everybody, this is Spencer. Spencer went out of their way to message our teacher beforehand to be like, hey, my name's Spencer, just a heads up.
Right.
No problem with
Makes sense.
that teacher.
I just wanted to touch
However,
on it. Go ahead.
there were a lot of situations. So the way our program works, we go through a lot of different teachers. Every single teacher that we had been introduced to has been introduced to my classmate as Spencer, a non-binary person. However, I still have teachers referring to them as she. We still have teachers referring to them as their dead name, just because that's their legal name. And like, that's what bothers me. You were introduced to this person as a non-binary human using they, them pronouns with the name of Spencer. And now, all of a sudden, these people that are just like, oh, it's just so hard to get used to. You're not getting used to anything. This is how you met this person. And they're still having issues with it. Like, that's my problem.
That can be an issue. I get that. I do think visual impact has a lot to do with the mistakes we make, but I think if visual impact isn't an issue, as you're also describing here, then yeah, I don't think there's big of an excuse you're introduced with that person. Oh, he's playing with backgrounds. He's got himself a brick wall. Or she. I know, I got it.
That was ironic.
Yeah, that really was. Anyway, there were
Well,
other
that's one of
topics
the-
that we wanted to get to. Oh, go ahead.
Just really quick, I promise to be fast. That was one of the things that, like, I had messaged Spencer, like, not in front of the whole class, to be like, hey, what do you like? What pronouns do you use? Because
Yeah.
saying that in front of a group of 13 people could be very intimidating, and I understand that. So, like, privately, after meeting the whole class, I messaged them and was just like, "Hey, Spencer, your pronouns were never super discussed. Like, I know when we first got on class, you were referred to this name. Now you go to by this name. Like, what are your pronouns?" And they just responded like, "My pronouns are they them. Like, thank you so much for asking." And I was just like, it like made my mind explode that me asking their pronouns was like so like progressive. Like, I feel like that should kind of be the normal. And I've learned a lot from them that referring to anybody as they them is most of the time respectful, because there
How do
could
you
be
refer to? I've wondered this for a while. How do you refer to they them in certain contexts?
it's always
What's
possible.
going up, dude? What's happening, my man?
Well,
Hey,
and
girl, what's happening? Hey, you don't say hey they. What's going on?
Usually in that case, something that I do is I'll just be like, "Hey, hello, my friend. How are you doing?" Something like that. I like
Yeah.
because friend. Like, I try to find something as neutral as possible. Oh, that's another question. Real quick, or not question. That's another
go
little
ahead.
mini rant.
Okay, we're
To
go
everyone
ahead.
out there who will watch this or have read my Twitter. Yes, I get it. When you say dude or guy or bro, you're meaning it in a gender neutral term. I get it. Stop fucking telling me. I understand. Cuz odds are you're not the first person to say that to me.
Those
Hey,
phrases are instilled in people's history too.
Hey folks
You know
is a
what I
great one too.
mean? Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that Jake has been here.
Go Russian. That's not neutral. Formal.
No.
You're free. And hello, my friend is another good aspect. And it is. Hello, my friend. And that's a good answer, because I do have a problem, like, because certain phrases are instilled in you. I've got phrases I still use from the 80s, 90s, etc. And they're just instilled in me. And sometimes you're like, how do I change that word? How do I make it right? And it just doesn't fit with a lot of things you try to put in there. It's like, that just sounds weird. But again, you're always going to fight. And will I ever get used to looking at somebody who looks like a guy and calling them she, or somebody looks like a she and calling them guy? Probably not. I will never pick it up like that. But I will always try, and I think a lot of people are always going to try to do that. Uh, I mean, really, it's
It
been
gets so
Jane's
fancy
show.
every time.
It's been Jane's show. I almost feel
so-
like I shouldn't have
so-
the final word here, but I am going to a little bit, because
Wait,
this
before you
panel
do.
was a great panel. What do you think now?
Before you do. 'Cause
I already
now
did
we're
the
at
intro.
Not yet.
Okay,
I did
fine.
the video.
Fine.
Almost.
Okay,
I
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask if. Nope, never mind. I'm just gonna do this now. I was gonna ask if everyone's cool with it. I'm just gonna do it.
All right. Well, all right. So, see, they're just like us. I was like, the same people. We're all smoking.
I've been smoking for hours.
All right.
Oh. Yeah.
Should have done that before the show.
Now that we're near the end, I can let my brain just. Anyway, go on. Yes.
It
yes,
can
take
be.
your
Well,
moment.
no. I mean, it's hard now because now it's interrupted. And I'm
Do the video again. Do the video.
You ruined the moment.
Do
the
you use
moment's
any
gone.
dog shampoo?
We try so hard. A lot of people do try. Being trans, being gay, being whatever you want to be, it's not wrong. It never has been. But a lot of us did grow up in a world where it was wrong. We have to learn to make the changes. But at the same time, I think, as you've heard on
So,
both
like,
sides,
not worth it.
you're not muted, Elena.
No, I don't need any dog food.
We've got to make changes. We've got to learn, but it works for both sides. If you are a trans person going through something and you want to be another gender, nobody should ever condemn you for that. It's very important that you get to be who you want to be. But understand that the world is not your world. The world has generations that came long before you and have not adjusted and will not adjust easily to this. Just like your world, even for Jane here, in 20 years, she's going to be confused because it's not going to be LGBTQIA. it's going to be LGBTQIARSTL3 double dash zero, and she's not going to know what the fuck they're talking about. Because things are constantly going to be added, and Jane, just like anybody else, is going to have a hard time adjusting too. But because you have a hard time adjusting, doesn't mean to get angry, doesn't mean to ignore it, doesn't mean there's not time to learn. And I do believe it's important to talk to people and ask questions. If you're confused, talk to them. Most people, like Jane here, are more than happy to tell you about themselves, more than happy to talk to you. And sometimes they're waiting for you to ask the question. Is that right or wrong? Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be right or wrong, because at the same time we're afraid to ask the questions. They don't want to just blurt it all out, because then they feel, I think, that sometimes they think their gender choice defines them, and that's all they want to talk about. They want to get down on you, and they don't want to do that either. So it's a learning process. But one thing that was constantly mentioned during this whole show was being yourself and accepting others for who they are. That is the one thing. Nobody can take that away from you. That's the one thing you can do without education. You can do it without research. You can do it without anything. You can do it by just being a morally good human being. Don't hate anybody because of their choices, because if you don't like trans people, good news, you're not going to marry one. Let them have their own life. If you don't like gay people, good news, you're not going to marry them. Let them have their own life. It doesn't fucking affect you. So if you're not going to agree with the cause, don't hate the cause because it doesn't affect you. Don't hate the people. Let them have their own lives. They're a human being just like you. They were brought up in a different situation than you, or the same situation, but they made choices in their life, and sometimes they weren't choices they made at all. They were just who they were born as. Don't condemn them for that. Condemn yourself for hating another human being that just wants the same rights to live, breathe, be happy, achieve success, and eventually die, like all of us will do. As morbid as that is, that's the truth. That's the complete truth. Love one another. You cannot accomplish anything if you don't show love to one another. You can't accomplish anything if all you do is hate. When you divide people, that's when people get angry. That's when people get hurt. That's when people put a gun to their head. And it's not their fault. It's yours. Because you never took a chance to look at them and say, hey, I want to know more. Talk to me. What's going on? You're still my friend. I don't care who you are, what you like, and what you do. That's the most important thing any of us can probably do. I do want to, of course, say that this topic has been the longest we've ever had. Life transformed. I did not expect this tonight, and for being such a long topic, I believe that Nikki had the least amount of vocal time on this topic, which is a first.
Be done in 5 minutes.
So, our
Sorry.
open forum, oh, you're fine. Our open forum is coming up this Sunday. The open forum is where we talk about anything. We talk about current events and issues that are going on, as well as anything you want to talk about, anything we've never covered on a topic, or even if we had, if you want to bring it up, talk to us about it. We're here. There's no wrong opinions. There's no right or wrong. You're a human being. You got questions. We need answers. That's how we run. Our next topic coming up the following Wednesday on the 23rd is Life Aborted. All right, very similar to our Life Transformed. Life Aborted is going to deal with abortion, whether it's right, people who have been through it, how they deal with it, where does it belong in society, should government be involved. There's so many things we're going to discuss about the abortion impact, because, and people on this panel, even myself, we disagree with certain aspects of it. So it should be a good show, especially when Elena gets riled up. It's so fun.
Get deep.
Yeah, it's going to get really deep. But don't forget, you can reach out to us anytime. Just go to our website, earshouldervoice.com. You can message us anonymously if you want to, or you can just be part of a social media network where we'll talk to you about your problems. You can talk back with other people where there's no judgments. Everything is just being you, being human, and wanting to learn more. Like, share, subscribe, and follow Ear Shoulder Voice on Meta, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Oh my God, it's so hard to say Meta. I'm going to get used to that at some point. And you can get new shows every Sunday and Wednesday here on Facebook or any of those other places, and chat live during the show. That's what we're here for. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Lenny, of course, and Bill, who are no longer in the chat, but it was really good to have them. Thank you for being here. Definitely a huge thank you to the chat, because you were engaging. You asked so many questions. That was awesome. That's what we need on this show, because you, like us, have questions. It's not wrong to question anything. It's not wrong to be curious. It is wrong to hold it inside, come up with your own answer, and be angry or mad about that answer that you came up with. Talk to people. We're here for that. Elena, thank you for being here. You are very outspoken and vocal, and I love that about you. It's very much needed, and your passion is a driving force for a lot of these shows, so I love when you're on it. So thank you. Nikki, despite being silent for so long, really glad to have you on here. You seemed very interested in a lot was being talked about. I don't think the silence was necessarily to Mike. I think you were really into some
Yeah,
of the topics.
it wasn't just mic issues. I was just very intently trying to learn and, and grow. That's really what growing is learning every day.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
We all have room
It was
to
a
grow.
great show. I'm so glad I was here.
As much as I'm perfect in every way, I'm not. I learn stuff too, and that's what we got to do. And I am. Now, Jane, you beautiful bitch.
Oh, I know.
So glad to have you on here. I think you're the first main guest we've ever had that literally stole the show.
Yeah.
You really did, and I think that's awesome.
And what can I say? I'm just happy to be here.
You need to come back. You need to come back.
Jane
just
is
let me
going
know.
to.
I'll come back. Trust me.
Every Wednesday and Sunday.
I'll tell you what. I'll be here on Sunday. If everything goes how it's supposed to, I'll be here on Sunday.
All right,
just
then you'll be on our open forum.
and smoke. Real quick, I want to thank my family. I want to thank my mom because she's really supportive and very caring.
There you
all
go.
the time. I'm sorry. I want to thank that. I want to thank all my friends who are always there for me, like Jake and Kyle, who I hope is watching this, but maybe not. Hey, I'm the Fuckwads champion, and this means the world to me. Rest in peace, Scott Hall. I hope you're okay, Big E. And fucking happy 316 day. This is
wow.
What a wrestling. Wrestling sucks. Anyway, I
feel like you just won the Super Bowl.
I was just like, this is the Academy Awards or something.
I'm sorry. I know I'm making it so exaggerated. Us gays. No, just this meant the whole world to do with you guys, and I'm so happy I was able to be here. And I can't wait to be on more of this stuff in the future.
Yay.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
I think
This
I speak
was
for
amazing.
everyone as well as they would say it for themselves that we're more than happy to have you on
Yes.
here. You were absolutely amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you on that, Jane. All right, you guys all have a good night. Thank you again for joining us here at Ear Shoulder Voice. Return every Wednesday and Sunday. We'll be here for you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
When you're alone and feeling down, and you're 10 feet underground, when you're so deep you're about to drown, when you're in the lost and found, 'cause heartaches only last a day. Ooh, but your heart will never fade away. Go out and find your way. Don't let them take your soul away. Not a week, not a single day. Hold true to what you wanna be. Never let go, and here's the key. Be you, yeah, only you. Only you. Be you, yeah, only you. Only you.
I thought nothing was ever going to top that racism show, I swear. That was going to be the longest ever.
Guys, that
Oh
was
my
so
God.
cool.
That was such a good show, and
That
I
was
had
so
a blast.
fun.
I hate to, it's not really leaving it short, but my kids have to get up for school, and I'm in my son's
What are you talking about?
room.
We're not live anymore.
I know we're not live, but to you three, thank
Okay.
you. It was a wonderful show.
Oh, thank you.
And my
Oh.
children have to go to bed. And
So glad to have you back, Nikki.
so glad to be here. I missed you.
And
An
we missed
asshole.
you. Let me get a hold of that computer. Let's get you worked up.
Yes, I'm telling you. Yeah, I got to do something, and very soon. I hope I see you soon
You will.
again. It was. We need to do a margarita Monday night, but margaritas for everybody else.
Oh, we're gonna do that again. I told you that's
Look.
gonna happen.
I'll come back around as much as I can. That was so fun.
That was wonderful. All right, get out of here, but see you soon.
Bye, Nikki.
Bye bye. Oh my god, you guys, that was fun.
But were you nervous at all before you did it?
Are you kidding me? I've never done this before. Of course I was.
Well, most of the people you see on here never did it. Just did it one time and are like, I like this.
Well, it wasn't even that too, but it was like the microphone, you know. So that was like a whole issue. I was like, oh my god, don't tell me, because I'm on a Mac right now, and
Oh, that's the problem right there.
well, no, what it is that to get this link, like to be in here, okay, full confession. I was not really prepared for this. Hi, Jake. I was not really prepared for this. I was playing WWE 2K. Like, I know it's more wrestling shit. I'm sorry, but I was playing that, and I was looking at the time because I had just been at, like, a new job. And I was like, oh, I need to be there. I need to be there. I need to make sure I'm ready. Oh, my God, I'm sweaty. I need to go shower. So that's why my hair is also just like a poof mess. Because I was like, I've never done this. I want to make sure I look good. And then it left me no time to get ready for my audio equipment that I keep by me, my Red Scarlet stuff. And so I was like, fuck, I gotta make sure that this is calibrated or else the whole thing's gonna get messed up. And for a while, I was still getting like feed. You know, remember like when we found out like
Yeah.
we were just hearing from like the computer when you put on the Echo? I was like, oh my god, my mic is not working at all. And I was like, man, I've spent so much money on this equipment. It better work for this stupid thing because I had to download Google Chrome. I'm sorry, I'm talking
Stupid.
so much. You know, no. How are you
Are you
guys?
glad you had Elena on there?
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Okay. Did you tell Elena? I don't know why I keep moving my head. You guys are just.
I told her that you requested she be on the show.
Yeah, cause dude, like the ones that I have watched.
We can't hear you, Elena. You're not muted. We just can't hear you. It seems to happen at the after show for some reason.
Go and come back.
This happened the last after show, I think, too.
Oh. But anyway, yeah. So I was like, oh, I don't want to look like an idiot. And so then when you guys were like, you have to get up to the thing, I was like, oh. And then I started like packing a bowl because I was like, man, this is what's gonna help me. But then like, I got my confidence back into it, and then that's why I touched it at the very end.
Do we hear you yet, Elena? Nope. What is it with the after show and your mic?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yay! Okay, so just fuck the headphones in the after show.
Okay, fuck the headphones in the after show. We learned something new.
Because that's what it
You know,
is, apparently.
it might switch your microphone over at some point. I don't know why, but it might switch your microphone over. But the software that we're using didn't switch your microphone; just your computer did.
See what
So
I'm
it's trying to.
saying?
Which is
It's all
dumb.
nuts.
It's
It is.
totally dumb.
It's so dumb.
Technology, I will never understand it.
Well, none of us can understand technology. That's why we use it so much.
Yeah.
But I just can't tell you. This was a great show. This was a long-ass show. I did not
Yeah.
expect it to be
Oh
so
my
long.
God.
But we
I
beat
was-
the racism show. That was just over 3 hours.
I
Yes.
was looking at the time and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to make history, aren't we?
See, look at that. Jane, single-handedly, she overtook racism as the #1 issue in America.
Don't do that to me, man.